What is up, everybody? Happy Friday. Hope you're all doing well. It is episode 13 of Sports Clichés. I'm Jay. That's Craig. And we're going to be going over the divisional round matchups, taking a look at the wildcard weekend that was, and maybe even dipping around into some of the up-and-coming college players that might be joining the pros. How you doing, Craig? How's Friday treating you?
Not bad. It was, man, fun week of games last week, fun looking week of games this week. If I am correct, if I remember what you told us correctly, we both did very well last week on our picks.
Killed it. Both went 5-1. We split on Philly, Tampa Bay, and the Buffalo, New England. And so, yeah, that was, neither of those games were really close, but, we only one of those. Otherwise, we were good across the board. 4-0 in the games we agreed on there. Not too bad. A lot of chalk, obviously, except for one team. San Francisco 49ers going to Dallas, taking down the Cowboys in what was quite a game. I think, obviously, it was a good time slot for it. That late Saturday or, midday Sunday game.
Midday Sunday, yeah.
Good time slot for that. Wedged in between a couple blowouts, unfortunately, but crazy game. Really a tale of two halves. Kind of how I would say the Niners have been playing this entire season. It's really been sometimes polarizing how the teams played in one half, given how they played in the other. We'll just jump right into it. I think this is, that's probably one of the bigger games of what happened in last week. Obviously, the only upset, as we brought up, but also just a lot of shakeup too. Everything that happened in the game. Obviously, a lot of people are going to look to the end. What the hell is Mike doing? Big Mike is fucking up time management like he's been doing all season. Why is Dak running a QB draw? Why the hell are they committing so many penalties? A lot of it was interesting. I know betting folks, I heard some stuff. There was a lot of, as much as I'm a Niners fan, I was surprised to hear how much there was the love for the Niners going on the road there. A lot of folks were thinking the upset was going to happen here, and it just did. It was coming down to it, but it just happened.
Yeah, I mean, let's not forget, before talking about the game, I was picking Dallas, right? On paper, yes. That game, Dallas should have killed them. But, I mean, anybody who's watched Dallas this year could see that coming from a mile away. The Dallas Cowboys, on paper, are a top 3 team in the NFL. They got all the talent in the world to be one of the 3 best teams in the NFL. The problem with the Dallas Cowboys is they haven't been able to play consistently to save their lives, and they're hampered by a coach who doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. I'm sorry. There's just no other way to say it about Mike McCarthy anymore. The guy just doesn't get it. He wasn't even that good in Green Bay, right? He got carried by Aaron Rodgers to a Super Bowl. It's probably the reason Aaron Rodgers doesn't have 1 or 2 more. And he's coming back to hurt Dallas. Listen, if you're going to keep Mike McCarthy around, this is the outcome for Dallas. And it's not until they get rid of Mike McCarthy when that outcome can change. Listen, Jason Garrett was hampering this team, but Mike McCarthy might actually be hampering it worse. It's crazy to say, but I don't think Jason Garrett had a team with this much talent. They have 4 wide receivers on this team who could legitimately be at worst number 2s. All of them. Right? When you go from Cooper to Lamb, Cedric Wilson's been unbelievable. They got so much wide receiver talent. Dalton Schultz is a phenomenal tight end. How you have Tony Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott. How do you screw this up? How on earth do you keep screwing this up if you're Mike McCarthy? That QB draw is unacceptable. Also, really quickly out there, Dallas fans, you did not get ref balled. That ref was trying to save your asses. He needs to touch that ball. They snap that ball, it's a penalty and a 10-second runoff before the referee touches it.
Yeah, just also to that point, kind of a funny little thing, given how many penalties there were. because that ball has to be set back anyways by the ref. Say there was another second on the clock. They run that. They actually are able to get the snap off. Like, more than half their team is lined up on the original spot, which was the yard ahead of that. So they're all offsides, so you get a penalty there anyways. Because they're not all going to step back right then and there. And you got to get that snap immediately. Yeah. So it's like, it was just too much chaos for them in that situation.
It's just a bad play call. Like, you can't run. I mentioned this to you a few days ago when we were talking about this. I think it was right after the game. Would you rather have 2, maybe 3 shots with Dak Prescott throwing a Hail Mary from the 45-ish or 1 shot from the 30? I think I'd rather give Dak 2 shots anyways.
Well, that was the entire thing, and it's hard to watch because this happened a couple times with this Ryan's defense. I don't want to say he's playing a prevent defense, but he's playing soft. They're playing back. They're letting them get everything in front, and they're even letting them get the sidelines. And that's what they're doing. They just 10 yards, and they're going sidelines. They're stopping the clock. Basically, I think the thought is we're just going to allow you 1 play to the end zone, and that's going to be for the game, basically. That's what everything was setting up to be until they run that QB draw, QB, And I mean, yeah, you slide a little sooner, some certain things. I'm surprised you didn't just take another 10 yards and make it basically a 20-yard pass. And you've been able to get those, with some decent regularity on the Niners at that point. So I thought it was going to be coming down to that, 1 more snap, basically, maybe 2, if they just kept going to the sidelines. But yeah, I mean, that's a brutal call. I mean, you're asking a lot of everybody's got to be, that has to be practiced. That has to be, everybody has to know what their role is in that situation. Dak slides, he immediately gets that ball and has to go to the ref. You have to find the ref to put that ball down. That has to be the first thing. I mean, but it's all happening so fast. It's just a really bad scenario to put your team in.
It's a tough position for sure, but you're right, and 100%. A lot of this, I don't think Dak's taking enough of the blame on that because it's a horrible play call. Yeah. But if you're gonna call it, you got to run it right. Yeah. Dak's got to slide down, and he cannot let go of that ball until he sees the ref behind him. Yeah. Literally hand it to the ref like he's Ezekiel Elliott coming up behind you, right? Like, you cannot let go of that ball. The second he put that ball back down on the field and lined up behind his center, he screwed himself. Right? Yeah, unless you're forcing the referee to get through it.
His center then all of a sudden has to take the reins. Like, oh shit, hot potato, and now he has to be the one to find the ref. That's just something that has to be worked on, but it's like the moment sort of situation. I don't feel like they need to put themselves in that situation. No. They probably would have got 10 yards with an out route anyways, based on how we had been playing the defense.
And even if you wanted to go to even if you wanted to play like, okay, we're at the 40 now. I think they were at about the 40, the 45, somewhere in that range. Dak's got more than enough arm to hit that. Let's give him 2 shots at it. No. Right? I'd be okay with that if I was the Cowboys. Listen, Dak threw one up, just Hail Mary style throw on 4th down a minute before in playtime. No. And nearly hit it. No. Right? He threw up a peach of a throw, and it was just a tough catch for, I think it was Cedric Wilson. It was a tough catch he nearly made. Like, give Dak 2 shots at doing that? Right. Sure, why not? It's a better option than what you chose, right? Because even, like I said, even assuming you do that quarterback draw perfectly, Dak gets down after about 10 yards. He doesn't wait for first contact. He gets down early enough, because that was the other problem with that play. Dak waited too long to get down. He took an extra 5 yards or so, but it cost you too much time. You got to get down real quick. You get 5-10 yards, you get down, right? Yep. Because you're the quarterback. The second you slide, that play's dead. You don't need to wait for contact.
But it's to your point. I'll very much to your point. What's 5-10 yards compared to the 10 seconds at least that you're losing, if not more? Time is your value there. Like, granted, you need to move it up to make it an easier chance, but it's all still going to be a really long pass, and everything's going to have to work for that. So you need, if you could afford yourself another opportunity to do said pass as opposed to, only having the one shot and you got 5 yards closer. I gotta imagine, if you really take a look, stat that, and take a look at percentages and all that, I think you'd rather have the two chances from 5 yards before than one chance from 5 yards up when you're talking about 30 to 35, 40 yards, whatever it was.
Of course, especially with a guy like Dak, right? Dak's got a hell of a cannon of an arm.
Sure, yeah.
45 yards, well within his range to get it from snap to end zone in about 10 seconds. Right. That easily gives you two shots at it. If you can run it a little bit quicker, you might get a third bite at that cherry. It'd be really close for 3, but you'll get 2 for sure. I would rather that than one chance from 30. Yeah. Right? If you're only going to give me one chance but add 10 yards up to it, that 10 yards up isn't going to change too much because San Francisco's going to play deep prevent on it regardless. Right? You're still throwing up to a 3v5 or a 3v6, right? Depending on how you split up your receivers, right? You'd imagine you'd run it where you'd have 3 receivers going down one end, 2 down another, and then you have the one in the middle who, depending on which way you're going to throw, is going to break off to that side, right? So you're throwing up to a 3v5 regardless of whether it's from the 30 or the 40. I'd rather give myself 2 chances at that.
Yeah. And then I mean, but this has been the this is a little bit of the Achilles heel. It's been the obvious mistake that Dallas has been making. They have been just making god awful time management decisions, and McCarthy's not really calling the plays on either side. So literally, the only thing McCarthy has to do is time management for that team on the field. Both of his coordinators as well, I believe, getting looks at head coaching positions. So it might just be Big Mike back there. We'll see how that team does next year.
I know a lot of people really like Kellen Moore. I've actually heard rumors that Kellen Moore could be the next head coach of Dallas. That was Kellen Moore's play call, by the way. Just throwing it out there. That was Kellen Moore's play call. I get that. So I get that runs through Mike McCarthy. And listen, I know a lot of people said that. There's a very good. No,
you got to call him. You got to call. He's getting praise for all the good stuff as far as that offense.
Absolutely.
Number 1 offense in the league. He's gonna get looked at for a head coach, of course. Absolutely. But also
it was his play call.
Had to fucking call that play. Yes.
I will say there was a very good chance that was a thing Mike McCarthy had run in practices before in that situation. So Mike was probably looking for that play. There's a very good chance that's the case. I've heard that from a few different people too, of listen, this is something that Mike McCarthy practices week in and week out in the 2-minute drill situation of steal 10 yards with that QB draw, right? And then, get a quick spike, get yourself an extra 10 yards. If that's the case, it's probably something Mike McCarthy was looking for anyways. Right, and it was probably where it doesn't matter what Kellen Moore called in that situation, Mike McCarthy probably would have tried to get him to run the draw. If that's the case. That's an if. I don't know. I'm not in the Dallas camp. Maybe that's a thing Kellen Moore loves. Maybe Kellen Moore's the one who's like, nah, coach, trust me. If we run this play, we can steal us 10 yards, make this Hail Mary a lot easier, which it doesn't. That's the part of this to me that blows my mind. A Hail Mary from the 30 versus a Hail Mary from the 40 is not any easier. It's the same play. I don't know. The only reason you run that play is if your quarterback doesn't have the arm to make the throw. And that's not Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott has the arm to make that throw.
Yeah.
Awful play call. Really quickly.
Sure.
49ers need to be better this week. They cannot play that game and beat the Packers. They just can't.
Yeah. Granted. So, and I would completely agree. I think after the Kawhi Williams pick and you get that nice little run by Debo, all the momentum's going right there. It felt like you could pretty much stamp that game. And it was surprising because you had the injury to Bosa earlier in that game. Backup guys, next man up for the D line. They were still getting after Dak, going into that second half or into the second half and decently through the third there basically. They were still getting after him. Uh, Fred Warner with the ankle injury, that's going to hurt the team just because, yeah, that's the guy who's steering the ship as far as your defense is concerned. And then, of course, I think a lot of people kind of found out after the fact the Jimmy G getting a shoulder injury, along with his thumb pretty much being separated from the rest of his hand at this point. He's still out there, and yeah, I mean, you brought up that's the goddamn ugliest play that could have happened. That pick where he overthrows. I want to say, was it Jennings on the cross? I can't quite remember.
Jennings. It was Jennings.
Who's been money Jennings for you and that sort of thing, and you have a great chance to make a nice impact first down to really start sealing that game off, and
overthrew him by like 5 yards.
But it was close. An ugly one. Like, see, like Jimmy G's overthrows when he's doing it. Typically, it will be a down the middle throw, and it will be he's gunning it and he sails it, and it just goes right to the safety over the top. That's the typical one. This one was a little different, right? It's on the rollout, and he tries to float it, and it's just off. So we'll see. This is going to be a tough game for, it's only, a week after just about. Actually, they're getting the Saturday game, so not even as much rest.
6 days.
It's supposed to be single digits degrees-wise out there. Yep. It will be a very, very it will be a different game than we had in week 3. But I think there's some interesting things to take a look at. If we take a look at that game we had earlier in the season, the very beginning of the season, where actually the trajectory for both these teams looked very different. Niners had been coming off, and they actually started out decently in the season, despite losing Raheem. And Green Bay wasn't. They got the brakes beaten off them week 1 and were like kind of stumbling out the gates. It was a hell of a dominant performance early by Green Bay in that early matchup. I think they came out, they were 17-0 to start that game. And the Niners kind of had to crawl their way back kind of piece by piece throughout. Finally take a lead, and then, of course, everybody remembers fucking Rodgers able to pick them apart for enough yardage to get 51-yard field goal to Mason Crosby to finish the game. I don't want to say that it's like, oh, that's going to determine that this is going to be another close game. It's going to be definitely a different style of game. What's interesting is that this Niners team, I think, was still very much kind of figuring out how they were going to run their offense because Raheem went down. In this game, interesting to note, probably one of the worst defensive performances that the Niners had against a rushing attack. Aaron Jones went decently off. Nice little 19 yards for 82, or 19 carries for 82 yards. Got a tutty there. A little bit of work to A.J. Dillon. Rodgers had, mediocre, just over 250 yards on the passing side. But if you look on the offensive side for the Niners in that game, less than 70 yards rushing. And their main runner was Trey Sermon with 10 carries, followed by Kyle Juszczyk with 5.
Wow.
This team hadn't found what their identity was, which is, they knew what their identity was. They wanted to kind of run the ball, but they didn't have the personnel. They couldn't get that figured out yet. So this is going to be a very different Niners offense that you're going to be looking at going into this game from what they played previously in this season. And a Green Bay offense that obviously found their stuff. They're starting to click, and they're a lot more explosive than what they showed in that game, despite having one of the better running games, I would say, against the Niners.
Yeah, but remember early in the season, Aaron Rodgers wasn't playing that well.
He wasn't. That's exactly to my point.
And since then, he's awoken. Rodgers got pissed when we all got mad at him about the COVID thing, and he was like, "I'll show you." It's an interesting matchup. Have you heard any updates on Fred Warner?
Fred Warner.
Bosa
Fred Warner's good to go. Fred Warner's good to go. I think his participation started a little bit earlier. Everything that he's put out is that everything's,
he's good to go. Okay.
He's going to be going. Bosa.
Bosa's cleared today.
He's a full participant, and he had to clear the final independent look today, and I guess he did clear that. I think everything was pointing that to where he was.
Yeah. He'd be good to go. Garoppolo's shoulder, we don't know what the damage is on that, right?
Yeah,
We don't, and that's going to be a real question. And if Garoppolo can't throw the ball at least consistently, that's going to be an issue for them, obviously. Uh, but I think we'll get more into that when we get to the predictions for this week, obviously. It just flowed nicely from the Dallas game.
yeah.
But
Um,
they cannot play that same game they did against Dallas. They won't win.
yeah.
Like they actively in the fourth quarter were trying to let Dallas win that game. At times it felt they shut off. They shut off. And you got to give credit to Dallas's defense who did step up when they needed to, but boy, it got ugly. I think the U-Tree video that came out yesterday about it said it best when he was like, I don't think either team really wanted to win this game at points. It looked ugly. It was ugly. But listen, at the end of the day, all that matters in the playoffs is who won the game. And San Francisco won, and they get to live to fight another day. And if they come out and play better, they beat Aaron Rodgers again in the playoffs, who, by the way, is 0-3 in his career against San Francisco in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Uh, I mean, who knows, right? Uh, they have probably the most dynamic player in the NFL in Deebo Samuel. Well, maybe we'll talk about another dynamic player who will be back this week, who might be a difference maker on the other side of things. But it's hard to say, right? It's hard to say what the Niners' ceiling is,
Uh,
but they gotta play better than they did.
yeah, I would say as a whole. Again, this is a. I, I I think it's interesting that it's two teams that have already played this season, so there's a little bit of a feel. I'm very interested in. Uh, I think it's what's worked well for this team early on. This is kind of going to spell out the game very early on. Is that if the Niners are again able to kind of come out and maintain an early drive and put up a score early, a touchdown, and really work time of possession, that's going to be huge for them. If Green Bay is able to go out and get another, quick 17-0 that they were able to get in that early game this season, I don't. Yeah, you're starting to put a little bit more on it on Jimmy G, and that's not what this team needs. This team needs to be able to really work the field as much as possible, and uh, the running game is going to be huge. Green Bay is just a team that has lately been running ahead of teams uh, early on, and they don't get run on as often. But that run defense is porous, to say the least. And so if the Niners get going on that end, we might be having a flashback to a couple years ago when we're looking at 200 to almost 300 yards rushing
Yeah,
on the ground against this squad. So we'll see.
yeah,
And yeah, I suppose we have mostly dove into it, but we'll hit our predictions soon enough.
yeah.
One more thing I want to get into, I guess, before we actually start taking a look at those divisional round games. Something that we had talked about earlier in the week, and being it's the first season we've had it, it's kind of an interesting one. Kind of two things, anyways. 17-game season and kind of how that experiment's worked out. But ultimately, do we really need a seventh seed
No,
in the playoffs?
no. I think we found out last week we do not need a 7 seed in the playoffs. Both 7 versus 2 games were blowouts, and I mean, we talked about it with the Steelers in particular,
Right.
right? Where we had both said like this team is not good. And they came into that game and they kept the Chiefs close for a quarter. And then the Chiefs just blew the doors off of them. And it felt inevitable, right? It felt like whenever the Chiefs wanted to turn it up to the second gear, they were going to run right over the Steelers. And they did. And then obviously with the Bucks and the Eagles, same thing, right? The Eagles kept it close for a little bit, but ultimately it felt like the Bucks, whenever they wanted to pull away, could just pull away. And then the Eagles obviously put up 15 in garbage time when the game was over and made it look closer than it was. Neither one of those teams needed to be in the playoffs, right? There was no issue having 2 buys, right? You don't need a seventh team in the playoffs. They just neither one of those wild card teams looked like they belonged in the same building as the two.
So here's the counter that I'll have to that. And it kind of goes with the 17-week season. It kind of lined up for the NFL in regards to that. End of the regular season had some hot games, a lot of shifting, and those last playoff spots were in, they weren't sealed up. There was a lot of shifting to be done, and who made it and who didn't, that sort of thing. So from a regular season going into postseason aspect, it worked out fantastic because you had a lot of intrigue in these games. There wasn't anything, and ultimately you had a crazy scenario in which a team like the Steelers that we did not expect to be in the conversation at all to be a playoff team ends up getting in somehow, some way through incompetence or whatever from other teams. Chargers, looking at you. We could have had the fucking Chargers in the goddamn. They should have been in the playoffs. And with the 7 teams, they had all the opportunity. They widened the gap to let them go, and they still took it to the outside and fucked it up somehow. The Chargers did not make the playoffs this season. And that would have been Chargers Chiefs. That would have been a fantastic game. That would have been awesome. So it's like they're obviously not going to scrap it after 1 year. I think there's gonna still. It's an interesting breath, and oddly enough, I think one of the early predictions you might have had was that we were gonna have a losing team on one side going in. Oddly enough, we didn't. Somehow, some way, we had above 500 teams on both sides. We didn't even have a 500 team, and Pittsburgh could have easily been 8-1. That would have been hilarious too. But, so I mean. Still, like, it's getting right there, that threshold of being, like, not competitive. I was very disappointed in how the Eagles came out. I mean, Hurts looked super flat. He looked bad in that game. Like, he wasn't nothing of any of the confidence or, like nice little offensive scheming that they had leading up to this. Philly just lost all that going into this game, and it was ugly early, and it was uglier than the score indicated. It was 17-0 going into half. It felt like a 31-0 game. Like,
it was
game was
31-0 at the end of the third quarter.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
but it felt like that going into the half. Like, it was bad. So it was just damn shame.
I've said it before with Jalen Hurts, if we're just going to touch on him really quick.
Sure.
I don't think he's the kind of guy who can carry a team. I don't think Jalen Hurts is the quarterback who can take you to a Super Bowl. Right.
I like him with their good running game if they could keep that sort of thing going.
Maybe if you put him in the right system where he can be Jimmy Garoppolo and his main job is to hand off the ball and then, stretch the field out when you need him to.
You know you're wrong. Yeah, why do you say that? Do I need to read
Jimmy Garoppolo's stats to you? Do I need to read Jimmy Garoppolo's stats to you over
his only? Come on.
20 touchdowns, 12 picks this year. 20-12. Yeah. That's not good. That's not, I'm going to take a team to a Super Bowl good.
Main job to hand the ball off. I'll give you a fucking
That is his job. Give the ball to Deebo Samuel. That is your job.
Just going to completely...
The reason I use Jimmy Garoppolo in that is because he is the perfect quarterback for that. He is good enough as a quarterback to not make mistakes, but he's not good enough he's not Aaron Rodgers. He's not Tom Brady.
No, and I'm not saying he fucking is, but Jalen Hurts, you give me a fucking break. You give me a...
way better than Jalen Hurts. I'm saying in a system where he can do what Jimmy Garoppolo does. He might be able to do something.
But he's not that player. He's not a Jimmy Garoppolo.
No, he's not as good as Jimmy Garoppolo.
No, but he's not even that style of player either. Like Jimmy G like has a little bit of mobility, but he's mostly sitting in the pockets hitting, short routes.
My point about that is you put him in a system where Jalen Hurts doesn't have to be the guy. Right? Where his job is mainly to facilitate the players around him.
Sure. But it's not
Right.
to say your main job is to hand the ball off. That's not exactly how it works.
Okay, sorry. His main job is to hand the ball off and occasionally throw screen passes to Deebo Samuel. His job is to just put the ball in Deebo Samuel's hands.
This is the thing. And this is always really funny to me because people will point to like specific numbers and he only throws for so many yards and touchdown interception ratios. This offense runs exactly when it's running well. It's running exactly the way it's perfect.
I agree.
And so the whole idea though, but like everybody will remember like an overthrow in the Super Bowl. Jimmy G can sling the rock when he fucking needs to. And throughout most of that game with a fucking thumb that's not even fucking there, basically.
He's a
slinging the rock in that first half.
I don't disagree with any of this.
So,
do you want Jimmy Garoppolo throwing the ball 40 times in a game?
No, of course not.
No, never.
But that's more the offensive scheme. That's not like the way you put it.
That's what I'm saying.
No,
put Jalen Hurts in an offensive scheme where he doesn't have to throw the ball like crazy, where he can hand the ball off to skilled players, where he can, use his mobility instead of having to throw the ball like crazy. He might be able to do a little something.
But when you say something like his main job is to hand the ball off somebody else, that you're trying to knock his ability as a quarterback as well.
I'm saying that is his main job.
I'm telling you, that's how it fucking reads.
Is his main job not to hand the ball off?
No, his main job is to quarterback the fucking team. Whether that's throwing the ball or running the ball off, he is fucking leading the troops. That's all it is.
Eli Mitchell ran the ball more than Garoppolo threw it last year.
Yeah.
That's not even counting Deebo Samuel's runs.
Yeah, but that's the fucking play call. What do you? Oh, I got an audible out. I got to throw the rock. No, that's what
Jimmy Garoppolo's main job on the San Francisco 49ers
is to play quarterback for the fucking 49ers, and it doesn't matter whether that's throwing or handing the ball off. Simple as that.
Skilled players and not turn the ball over. His job is not to throw the ball.
His job is to play fucking quarterback. Play quarterback. That's what his job is. QB1.
So you could put Jimmy Garoppolo into the Buccaneers system and it would work.
Possibly. How the fuck do you know? How the fuck?
He can't throw the ball 40 times in a game. He'll lose. You'll lose.
Okay, so you are like... It's obvious he's not Tom Brady. We're not trying to make that comparison. But...
he's not even Justin Herbert.
I think it's pretty goddamn ridiculous that it's like he just hands the ball off. Like,
it's not what I said. I said his main job is to get the ball to Deebo Samuel.
Yeah, but how that reads. It's just like, oh yeah, no, so he just hands the ball off.
I get what you're saying, but that is his main job.
Play quarterback. QB1.
Not the same way that elite quarterbacks play quarterback. Your job is to play quarterback to less of an ability than other elite quarterbacks play quarterback.
Yeah. And you know who was handing the ball off a lot and not really looking like all that much of a stud early on? Fucking Aaron fucking Rodgers this season. How about that?
Yeah, but when did the Packers
not his main, you would never say that's his main job to hand the ball off to Aaron Jones.
Exactly, because when did the Packers start to become a great team again? When Aaron Rodgers started slinging the rock like crazy.
Not exactly.
When the Packers started to look like the best team in the NFC.
No, Rodgers wasn't slinging the rock until about midway through the season. They were still relying on running the ball and the defense.
Like they weren't even close to the Cardinals.
They were right up there in the midseason, and they were running the ball and winning with defense. They were not winning with Rodgers throwing the rock.
How many times on this podcast did we say the Green Bay Packers do not look that great? A lot! It wasn't until Rodgers started slinging the ball like Rodgers does when the Packers really started to look elite.
Well, their defense, they won with running the ball and defense.
Mainly defense. They didn't even really win with running the ball. Mainly defense. But I get what you're saying. They were winning games, but they never looked like a team that was supposed to contend. Not until Aaron Rodgers started slinging the ball like crazy. Once Aaron Rodgers started to look like an MVP candidate again, that's when the Packers really started to look like the best team in the NFC.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to disparage Jimmy Garoppolo.
I'm pretty sure you are.
I'm pretty sure he is the perfect quarterback for the situation he's in. The perfect one. I know that there's a lot of Niners fans out there who want to see Trey Lance. Spoiler alert, this team's going to be worse with Trey Lance. Jimmy
Yeah,
Garoppolo
no
is a
doubt.
great game manager. He is not an elite quarterback. He is not the guy I want slinging the ball 40 times. My point with Jalen Hurts is I don't want Jalen Hurts doing that either. Put him in a situation where he doesn't have to play hero ball with the ball, and he'll be fine. Jimmy Garoppolo, you don't want Jimmy Garoppolo throwing hero balls. You want him doing the simple things. Get the ball to Deebo Samuel, complete your easy passes, sling the ball when you have to, when the field opens up for you. He threw for 172 yards last week.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you take a look, game in, game out. Slinging it or not, whatever you want to say. Garoppolo threw for 3 yards less a game than Rodgers did on the season.
Yeah, 20 touchdowns, 12 picks.
Yeah.
That's not a good ratio.
It's fine.
It's acceptable. Yes, absolutely.
It's fine. But you're talking about slinging the rock and throwing it and going down the field. Rodgers didn't really fucking sling the rock. Like, it's a great ratio and that sort of thing. He has, good guys to throw to, but that looks like a lot of, red zone touchdowns and shit to me. That's not, he's not fucking popping off the board for 300 yards plus a game. We run the ball really fucking well. And so therefore it's going to, as far as Kyle Shanahan's concerned, if we're operating at our best, we're probably run the rock more than we are passing it. Absolutely. Averages would tell you that.
Yes.
Across the board. That doesn't mean Jimmy Garoppolo's main job is to hand the ball off. That's not like, because he does percentage more of that in a game. That's like, I don't know. I just think it's kind of a shitty way to phrase how that offense operates. His main job is to hand the ball off.
Jimmy Garoppolo is not an elite quarterback. Will never be an elite quarterback. Sure.
Word.
Maybe his main job is...
I never fucking claimed that.
Okay, so...
my
argument here is...
TB12, baby.
He is put in a system where his job is to not be an elite quarterback. His job is to just keep the ball, keep the offense moving.
His job is to be quarterback number one for Kyle Shanahan's offense, whatever that may be. Simple as that.
His job is
QB1.
to not be the same quarterback that Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers are.
QB1. Simple as that.
Frickin' Davis Mills is QB1!
Yeah. And Davis Mills played a whole lot fucking better than you gave him credit for throughout the season. So I don't even want to hear that.
The last, 3 games.
I don't want to hear that. Davis Mills actually was one of the best rookie quarterbacks this year besides Mac Jones. So, yeah. Davis Mills. Oh, well. Shit. Houston's a fucking garbage fire anyways. They got actually something going there with that kid, at least.
Just being QB1 doesn't mean you are this elite quarterback.
Never said it. Never fucking said he was.
So my argument here is that Garoppolo is
because he's not an elite quarterback. His main job is to hand the ball off. His
main job is to not be an elite quarterback. His main job is to facilitate the skill players around him instead of throw the ball like crazy.
Isn't that what fucking every quarterback does? Facilitate offense for the rest of someone's got to pass the ball to somebody else. You're facilitating offense for fucking Devontae Adams.
Not make the receivers better. The receivers make Jimmy Garoppolo better.
Now hold on a second. Now balls have to be on the money. Have to be able to catch them in stride.
Where were the Niners before they decided Deebo Samuel needs to touch the ball every play? They were 3-5.
I mean, yeah, but early in the season, I mean, that's okay. Deebo Samuel, yeah, of course, great fucking player, great wideout.
Yes, probably the most versatile player in the NFL, one of the best players in the NFL. He couldn't throw the ball to him consistently enough to get wins. They had to work him into other places.
I mean, they had nobody in the fucking backfield. So that's why Debo got fucking handoffs on as tailback. Like they had nobody else. When you lose
Yeah,
your
and
number
then they
one,
started
your
to win
number
the game
two,
because
your number
they got the
three.
ball into Debo's hands.
I
They
mean,
couldn't do that consistently just throwing the ball to him.
I
Listen,
don't know if that's the case. Like
it
he got
clearly
the
was.
ball.
They were 3-5.
He has the greatest foot. Like he was one of the top receivers throughout the year.
I know, but when you only have one guy,
He's a top 5 receiver throughout the year, and then he becomes the best rusher. Of course, yeah, Debo Samuel's a fucking beast.
they
But
still
Jimmy still had to throw the rock to him. Trey
But
Lance had to
do
throw the
enough to
fucking
win.
rock to him.
They couldn't do it enough to win.
There was a lot of reasons why they lost the amount of games they did in that stretch. Penalties,
When you
defensive
struggle-
backfield, all sorts of shit was going on.
When you
Injuries left
struggle,
and right.
truly great quarterbacks will force wins out of teams. It happens all the time. Jimmy Garoppolo never did that.
I would say no. He led a couple 2-minute drives to win us games this year. Absolutely, he did.
When you were struggling, when it was a 3-5 team who looked like they had no business being close to the playoffs, Jimmy could not force those drives to get wins.
Teams have bad fucking streaks. The Packers did too. They looked garbage at the beginning of the season.
They lost 3 games all year.
Aaron Rodgers can't lead them down the field. Like, no, that wasn't the case.
They lost 3 games all year.
And they looked shit at the beginning of the season.
The Buccaneers have looked shit for a lot of this year. They found ways to win games. Why? How does that happen? When the Chiefs were looking like shit, they were finding ways to steal wins. Elite quarterbacks steal wins for you. Jimmy doesn't do that.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. If you still go on this elite quarterback thing, yeah, I guess he doesn't quite do it the same way.
And you're missing my point here.
I'm saying you keep saying elite quarterback. You're the one who keep fucking saying that every time.
Because
you keep saying elite quarterback.
You seem to think my argument here is Jimmy Garoppolo's not a good quarterback. He's a perfectly fine quarterback for what they need him to do.
No,
He's the best quarterback for what they need him to do.
Yeah, you're saying his main job is to hand the ball off, not to be quarterback.
His main job is to not make mistakes rather than win games. His main job is to not hero ball wins. It's to not make mistakes and let the guys around him win games.
And yet, when he needs to fucking do it in a 2-minute drill, Jimmy Garoppolo has multiple times throughout his career won games.
When he needed to do it in a 2-minute drill, he threw a pick and gave Dallas a chance to win.
That fucking happened again. Injured shoulder, no fucking thumb. Good fucking luck. Yeah, he took something off the ball. It was an ugly fucking pick. We already brought that shit up. But he had multiple times in the season and in his career past, multiple 2-minute drives to win games for the Niners. No doubt about that. Against this Packers team, has done that. Against divisional, like, it's happened time and time again. But everybody wants to point to, oh, he had an ugly pick here. Oh, shit, he overthrew his receiver in the Super Bowl. That's easy. It's easy. Yeah. It's easy. Of course, it looks bad, and they don't win a game because of X throw. But there's a lot of other things that go into not winning a game besides one throw here or there. A lot of factors.
I don't disagree with that. But if your argument to me is Jimmy Garoppolo is more than a system quarterback.
He's a quarterback.
He needs to do more than a system quarterback does. Listen, there's nothing wrong with being Brad Johnson. Brad Johnson won a fucking Super Bowl. But that's Jimmy Garoppolo's ceiling. He's the guy who works in a system. If you trade Jimmy Garoppolo to frickin' Green Bay where he has to throw 40 times a game, Green Bay's not winning much.
Yeah. Maybe,
if
man.
You think I'm saying Jalen Hurts' ceiling is Jimmy Garoppolo and that is somehow insulting Jimmy Garoppolo? It's not. Jimmy is perfect for what the Niners need him to do. But you just don't want him to do any more than that. Because you're probably not going to win games like that.
Yeah. All right. Let's keep moving. I think we just talked enough about that.
Sure.
let's just go into it. Divisional round: Cincy, Tennessee, 4 seed, first seed. Tennessee minus 3.5. Who do you got?
Tennessee.
Tennessee as well. Same
Uh,
here.
Derrick Henry being back, they're they're probably just gonna run the ball all over Cincy. I don't hate Cincy. I love what they've done this year, but I don't think they can stop Derrick Henry.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Henry is going to. I mean, that's a hell of a factor. It'll be interesting. I mean, when you're coming off of an injury, and you've been off the field for so long, we'll see how long it takes him to like get back into, get into the rhythm that he needs to for the game. I imagine he'll be pretty quick to it. It will be interesting to see this Titans team as they. I mean, yeah, like you have established like backup backs as well when you talk about McNichols. We've brought up multiple times. I'm flubbing on something. Who's their other?
Deonta Foreman?
Thank you. Um,
I could see
it's
Deonta Foreman getting a fair amount of touches in this game.
Yeah,
To be honest with you,
like
just to kind of ease Derrick Henry back into this game, right?
exactly. Like I don't think he'll like it won't be like Derrick Henry mid-season form Derrick
No,
Henry. It will definitely be a little bit of working him in. The thing that's gonna be nuts. I mean, I think this is kind of what I brought up potentially for this Niners Green Bay game coming up. Since he gets this ball early, they're able to drive down, get a touchdown on Tennessee, really start putting the screws to him. It would be very interesting because since he has a decent pass rush going for him, they start getting to Tannehill because he has to pass the ball a little bit more. They start to break Tennessee out of the
yeah,
ability to just run the ball
yeah,
on him. I think we both kind of agree that if Tennessee is able to work the clock, work Henry in, work their running game in,
they'll
and
dominate.
Tannehill could play like Jalen Hurts, I guess.
Yeah,
Then yeah, we'll see a pretty simple. I don't want to say an easy win because it's the playoffs, but that's their avenue. That's the easy
yeah,
road for them to win.
and Cincinnati's run defense, it's not like they've been anything spectacular this year, right? They've been run on a few times by a few different teams, so they gotta tighten the screws a little bit. They gotta make sure that they can shut down Tennessee's run game, and if they can, Tannehill's gonna make mistakes. Listen, Tannehill, I no faith, no faith in Ryan Tannehill if he has to throw the ball at all. So
Yeah, I mean the thing that they've always had, and it's always going to be a threat, is um, their wideouts. Like Tannehill, and he's going to have his troubles. That's been clear. But obviously, you got a guy like AJ Brown who go up and get it for you. Um, I've tried to like, and I've wanted to bring up Julio. Like Julio's actually had a pretty meh season, and it's
he's
like
been
I
invisible,
keep wanting to be
man.
like they have this super strong one too, but 31 catches, less than 500 yards, and only one tutty on the year. I know
And he
he's
got
been
in the
dinged
last
up.
week of the season.
Yeah,
He did not have a touchdown before that touchdown in the last week of the season.
so it's like they do have weapons though, and so there is a little something to that. But Cincy, I really like their I do like their pass rush. And on the flip side, their offensive game, I mean, Mixon, probably one of the more underrated backs, ran for 1,200 yards this year. Pretty goddamn good. You got to obviously like, how Burrow has been operating, and having, someone like Jamar to throw to. That stuff, it pops off the page as far as like how many yards. Jamar Chase almost went for 1,500 yards this fucking season. Like, that's crazy in your first season in the league. And especially for, like, what the predictions were. He can't quite hold on the ball all the time, that sort of thing. He had some hiccups during the season, but ultimately, like, that's some nice dynamic offense they have on the running and passing side of the ball.
Yeah, and the scary thing for the Titans here, uh, that needs to be talked about is the Bengals are playing with house money. They weren't supposed to be here, right? At this,
Yeah.
uh, yeah, not at the start of the season. I think when you saw them match up with the Raiders, you
Yeah.
said, okay, that's probably that they probably got a good chance to win that game. But I mean, in general, if you look at
Right.
where the Bengals were at the
Oh
start of
yeah.
the season, they're way into house money at this point, right? And that's a scary team, right? There's so much less pressure on the Bengals right now because Bengals fans are happy. Whatever happens from here on out, the Bengals are golden, right?
Yeah.
We have a good young team that made a run much deeper than anybody gave us credit for,
Right.
right? They're playing with house money. So they get to go into Tennessee now in a situation where all the pressure's on the Titans, pressure's off the Bengals. Not only did they make the playoffs, but they won a playoff game. For the Bengals, man, they might as well build statues of this team at that point. Uh, all that pressure's on Tennessee. Early game, if they can kind of keep this game close, maybe draw out a lead, that pressure kind of starts to build up a little bit. You get the
Yeah.
crowd booing a little bit, right? Maybe get a little bit of upset fans in Tennessee who were expecting a little bit more. Momentum swings quickly like that. That's another scary thing in these kind of playoff matchups. Where you got one team who's, win or lose, we've made it as far as we thought we would go, right? So there's a lot less pressure on you, right? The pressure's kind of off at that point. Not saying that there's no pressure, right? And I'm not even saying that for the players that's the case. But that sideline in Cincinnati is going to be a lot easier to keep lighthearted. It's going to be a lot easier to keep the energy up if something bad happens than it will be on Tennessee's side where they look at this game going, we need to win this one to realistically make it where we should be.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I think it was it was an interesting like end to the season because I think by about the 2/3 point or so of the season, I want to say, if I was just throw a random week out there, week 13 or so.
Yeah.
That's about 3/4 more or less, I guess. I think at that point, like, it wouldn't have been a huge letdown, and based on like early season predictions, yeah, absolutely not. But at that point, you almost like get your hopes up a little bit.
Yeah.
Cincinnati looked like a fucking playoff team, and it was getting really muddy there in the North, and it was just like people were at the top and then dropping to 3,
Yeah,
and then 2 dropped to 4 dropped to up with 2. It was just nuts.
you could argue there was points where no team in the AFC North looked like a playoff team, but I get what you're saying. The
like
Bengals were
three
were
of the teams
best
are
of
none of
that
the teams
bunch.
basically.
Yeah.
Like 3 of the teams
Yeah.
look good or none of the teams basically. It was just this kind of mishmash, and just you're kind of just pulling for Cincinnati more or less because they are the ultimate underdog of all those teams. Storied Pittsburgh, franchise. It's the fucking Steelers. How many Super Bowls, that sort of thing. Baltimore with Lamar, and they like when they're really looking good, that looks like a great fucking team, but obviously not this season with all the injuries and stuff that they had. And then Browns, based on what they did last season, right?
Yeah.
And that they had the upset in the first round. They look like they would be the ones potentially taking the mantle. The Ravens weren't able to do it, right?
I would argue the Bengals this year very similar to the Browns last year in terms of the rise from start of the season prediction to where they're at now, right?
Yeah.
I don't think anybody last year would have really thought the Browns were going to make noise because they're the Browns, right? Nobody's going to bet on the Browns, right? The Bengals have the Bengals get away with kind of being a shit team because they play in the same division as the Browns, but that was the Bengals' first playoff win since their quarterback was John Kitna.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, the Bengals was a lot more sudden. That's the only thing I feel. With the Browns, it was like they were building toward that, right?
Yes.
They built to like a kind of a 500-ish team. It's like they can make the playoffs next year. Then they did, and they got that one win. It's like, all right, yeah, the Browns, like they had that nice little step up. Bengals came out of fucking nowhere. We thought this thing was going to be a dumpster fire. I hope Joey Burrow isn't going to fucking die this year because he got sacked 70 times. He got sacked like 50 times. Still bad, but
better.
but better. Yeah, they weren't all that bad too. You learned how to like kind of probably take some hits a little bit easier.
What I mean by similar to the Browns isn't necessarily in terms of necessarily player profile or team profile, but rather in terms of like this is a really bad team who you cannot put any faith in until they prove to you that they can do something. right? Now they've kind of proven that they can do something. I think at this point in the city of Cincinnati, they're happy with this season, right? Like Bengals fans right now, they're happy. They won a playoff game. God forbid. Never happens in Ohio. They
Yeah.
don't win playoff games.
Pretty cool.
So,
Home playoff game too for them. That's pretty cool.
yeah, and a
Like,
home
yeah.
playoff game at that, right? So at this point, they're kind of playing with house money,
Yeah.
right? That's my point here. Is I think
Right.
for the Titans, they've been in the playoffs a couple of years in a row now. Obviously, they have
Yeah.
arguably the best running back in the NFL. Jonathan Taylor might have something to say about that now, but after the stinker that the Colts had at the last game of the season,
Yeah.
it's hard to argue against Derrick Henry again.
And that was the other thing I was going to bring up right there at that 3/4 point or so of the season. How the fuck did the Tennessee Titans end up with the first seed? None of us. I don't think anybody really saw that. It's like, yeah, they don't have D. Henry. They're gonna probably take a loss or two toward the end. Like they'll be in there and they'll have a home game, but no one thought they were getting the bye. Like, and so that's kind of crazy in its own right. Not as crazy as the Bengals making the playoffs, but the fact that Tennessee was able to hold it down and getting like it was funny because at the time it's going into that game it almost felt like it was going to happen regardless. But Tennessee getting that win against the Niners with a couple weeks to go in the season there, huge dub against a playoff team right there. And yeah, how much that has factored in, and now you get the extra week, get Henry in. Dangerous, real dangerous team. I think the only way that the Bengals really do have a chance, and I actually, honestly, even though I'm picking the Titans here, I kind of hope they are able to make this interesting with like an early touchdown. They get out to an early lead here.
Put some pressure on the Titans, not just the Titans players, but Titans fans. This is going to be in Tennessee. It's going to be loud. The Titans fans are feeling it right now. They're the number 1 seed. This is probably the most excited they've been about a Titans team since Steve McNair. Right? Like, that if they can get some scores early, make that crowd frustrated, you could turn that really raucous home crowd into a bit of a negative. Right? Nashville, say what you want about the people in Nashville. They turn up for playoff games in any sport. I don't know if you've seen any Nashville Predators home games in the playoffs. They're wild. Right? They're out there saying their favorite player is Paul Kariya, dude retired 3 years ago. But they're nuts. Right? They're going to do the same thing for the Titans. But you can easily turn that if you're an away team. Get a couple touchdowns early, and now that wild crowd is pissed off. And that's a very different atmosphere in that crowd.
Sure. Yeah.
So I think that's another interesting perspective for the Bengals. If they can get on this early, that crowd turning against the Titans could be a big factor. But yeah, no, ultimately, I just think the Titans have too much, right? Hypothetically, this could all happen, but I think what we're going to see more likely play out is they get the ball to Derrick Henry and Deontay Foreman early. They're able to really pound the rock. They're able to wear down the Bengals defense, which is okay, but hasn't been particularly fantastic, right? And you just... death by 1,000 cuts in this one, right? And you do what Derrick Henry always does, right? First half, he'll have 10 touches for 30 yards, and everybody will be like, oh, look at how great Bengals are doing against Derrick Henry, their control. And then he'll break off a couple of 50-yard touchdown runs and just run all over you in the second half, because that's the way Derrick Henry does it, right? It's death by 1,000 cuts. He'll just keep running at you until you can't handle it anymore.
I don't even know if it's death by 1,000. I mean, like 1,000 cuts means it's like subtle, right?
Yeah,
it might be a fucking it's like death by like 10 bludgeons. Like I think that's how this might go a little bit more. Just like
death by 1,000 sledgehammers.
Jesus, I don't want to hit this motherfucker anymore, especially if you're a DB. Think about a DB that's having to come in, or like maybe a lighter safety or something like that has to come in from like 15 yards off the line. And they got a Derrick Henry coming right at them, and they gotta go. That's some of the scariest shit. Oh God, what if I gotta go low, right? And then you just don't go low soon enough or something like that, you just get blown up anyway. So.
And it's something we've mentioned before too, which is the lightening of the linebacker position, right? Like linebackers in general aren't the same guys they used to be. They tend to be a little bit smaller, a little bit faster. They can help in pass coverage, and they'll do a part in the run game, but they're mainly out there to be essentially another corner at times, right? And you look at guys like Marcus Bailey, for example, on the Bengals, who's they say he's 6 feet. I think that might be 6 feet in cleats. Like he's a smaller guy, right? You don't have 6'4", 230 linebackers anymore, right? It doesn't really exist in the same way in the NFL because your linebackers need to be quick. They need to be explosive. They need to be able to help in pass coverage a lot more than they need to help in the run game nowadays. And I think Derrick Henry just feasts on that a lot.
No, definitely. Yeah, it's going to be a. I don't even know necessarily. I would even say like a tall order. It's just a few things got to work out early. I'll keep kind of pointing to that early game. For
Absolutely,
Cincinnati.
First quarter is going to be big in this.
Like, game. Yeah, just kind of getting off on the right foot. It could be even a close game. I think if Cincinnati's able to keep this game close, that's where it gets very interesting.
Yeah.
This is kind of going back and forth as far as the offense is concerned. You're seeing a lot of ties. You're seeing, leads kind of switch over. Given a possession or two, that sort of thing. God, I gotta say, if that's kind of the case too, I kind of like Cincinnati a little bit more than Tennessee, right? If it's really kind of going back and forth, these offenses are really firing off at one another, defenses can't seem to get it done. I kind of like Cincinnati to have a little bit more firepower in that, right?
Yeah, it's interesting, right?
Higgins, Chase, all like the weapon.
Yeah.
Boyd, I love their fucking wideouts and stuff. They got
their wideout, their wide receiver core is top 5 in the NFL. Like it's
strong. Good tight end too.
Underrated, very underrated. I don't think a lot of people would look at the Bengals wide receiver core like that. But if you really look at it, right, there's a lot more there than Jamar Chase, and that's not me knocking Jamar Chase in any way. What an unbelievable rookie season he's had. But you're right. You bring up Boyd and Higgins, and just have those two guys supporting Jamar Chase.
And Uzomah. There we go. Tight end. Uzomah. Yeah. I really like him. Yeah.
Yeah, like there's a lot of weapons there, and Joe Burrow is proving to why he was the number 1 overall pick, right? Like this year, he's been able to stay healthy, kind of able to stay upright at times, and he's been able to find his guys. If this turns into a shootout, it definitely favors Cincinnati, but I can't see that happening is the problem, right? Like I could easily see Tennessee holding the ball for 10 of the first 15 minutes in that first quarter, right? Like easily. It's what the Titans do. And especially, Titans have one of those big long Titans drives where they have 13, 14 plays and then Cincinnati goes 3 and out. That's where you could really see this game fall quickly because by the end of that kind of a first quarter, this game could be 7-0. But it could look a lot worse than 7-0, right? So that's the other thing, right? Is keeping it close means more than just on the scoreboard, right? You've got to be able to match plays with them. You can't let the Titans just hold the ball the whole time. The Bengals, when they get the ball, they need to do what the Bengals do well, which is strike quick, get big plays, and move the ball. You cannot be going on 3 and outs. Because if you're giving the Titans back the ball quickly, your defense is going to wear out fast.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, and that might not be exactly the style they've played with. They've had a lot of quick scoring drives, that sort of thing. But yeah, and something I've harped on multiple weeks. That sort time of possession is going to play a factor for the defensive side for one of these teams. I feel
for sure.
And it's a. I think Tennessee has more of that natural ability, obviously. You take a look at that running game. But, yeah, I mean, shit. Cincinnati, Joe Mixon, yeah, why not get him fucking 20 touches in this game?
Absolutely.
See how downhill he's able to run, start working that play action. Yeah, this is a fascinating game. I think it's an awesome way to kick off the playoff weekend for sure. I'm looking forward to it
To
tomorrow.
me, this is probably the second closest game. We'll talk about the closest game next, I think. But this is probably one of the two games this weekend that I look at and go, this could really go either way.
Yeah. And yeah, let's hop right to it. We've already hit a lot upon this game. I don't think we need to
Yeah.
touch on too many more details. Maybe one or two things, but we'll go in the second game later in that evening. We got them lined up, I guess, at 5:15 my time, so 5:15 Pacific, 8:15 Eastern. We got the San Francisco 49ers going into Green Bay to face against the Packers, 6 seed versus the 1 seed. Green Bay getting -5.5 here at home
Oh,
at
way
Lambeau.
too much. Way too much. Give me the
Big
Niners.
spread. Big spread.
Way too much. Listen, Deebo Samuel's an awful matchup for the Packers defense. He's a horrendous matchup for the Packers defense.
Sure.
And with it being snowy all day, that field's gonna be slick. It's gonna be cold. The way to play this game, we saw the outline of how to play a game like this earlier in the season with the Bills and the Packers, right? You don't throw the ball a ton. You get the ball into the hands of your playmakers, and you kind of use the elements to your advantage. Deebo Samuel has an elemental advantage in this one, in that what's going to work here is just get the ball in Deebo Samuel's hands and let him use his speed. Guys are going to be slipping out there. Guys are going to be sliding out there. There's going to be holes that open up, right? If Deebo can stay upright and use his mobility, this is an awful matchup for the Packers. Now, can the Packers win it? Of course they can.
Yeah.
Right?
No
they
doubt.
got
Yeah.
there's a reason they're the 1 seed in the NFC. They got all the talent in the world to win this game. But Deebo Samuel versus the Packers defense is going to be interesting, because if the Packers defense can find a way to shut him down, which, spoiler alert to this game, I don't think they can, but if they can, it could be a long game for the Niners.
Sure.
But I don't think the Packers have that player on the defensive side who can do that. Right? I don't look at the Packers defense and go, oh, this is the guy who's going to be able to, in these conditions, stop Deebo Samuel from doing what he wants to do. They don't have that.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. And I'll kind of go to the other side of the ball. I think one of the big things and what was defining in that first game for these two teams was the connection between Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams. Over half of the completions, over half of the yards, that offense ran through Devontae Adams, and the Niners just didn't have anything to really do to stop it. One thing that they do have going into this game, oddly enough, given how late in the season it was, and given how early they played, in playing in week 3 earlier this season, I believe. This is as healthy and as good as the Niners secondary has been all season, if you could believe
Yes.
it. You got your Mosley back. You got guys like Kawhi Williams who have fully come back with obviously that excellent interception that he had in that Dallas game there. Kawhi Williams just beautifully reading Dak's eyes on a play there. And then your young guys that you have been leaning on and just
Ambry
inexperienced.
Thomas.
Yeah, everybody's kind of coming up a little bit more. So that is one factor, but it's a much colder, shittier environment than what they played in San Francisco in September, right?
Yeah.
Or in Santa Clara.
And it's an environment that Rodgers is used to, right?
Sure.
This environment's not going to be anything new to Aaron Rodgers. He's played the whole career in Green Bay. He's been on that Lambeau frozen tundra before, right?
Yeah, I think if there's one thing that I really could take away from how this season's gone and really how it's going to end, but how it winds up with this game. With a guy like Jimmy G, I think it's always been this motherfucker's too injured. Like he just can't stay on the goddamn field. And right now he's getting taped and bandaged together right now.
Elmer's
he's going out
glue,
there
duct tape,
and he's
rubber
going
bands.
out there in single digit temperatures, and just this is what it's going to be right here. Obviously, it's mostly going to be the run game. I think for either of these teams to really have consistent offense, it's got to be
Or short passing, right? Screens.
sure, yeah, a little
Stuff
West
like
Coast,
that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, a lot of screens. I can see that, definitely. A lot of wide receiver screens I can see being in this game. Definitely just get the ball in Debo's hands, get the ball in Devontae's hands, whoever it
Yeah.
is, either side.
So
Yeah.
somebody else for the Packers who I think in that situation could play a big role. And you look at the Packers late in the season as they've started to really get that passing offense really rolling. Alan Lazard has played a big part in it,
Yeah,
but
sure.
Marquez Valdez-Scantling
Yeah.
in a game like this where it's get short passes into guys' hands and
MVS.
let them
Yeah.
make plays, Marquez Valdez-Scantling could be a big factor in this game for them too, if that's the kind of game this ends up being, right? He's a guy who, we see a lot of screens to Valdez-Scantling where he breaks off 10, 15 yards, right? He's really good at that first move at making guys miss after getting the ball in his hands.
Right.
He could get some play in this game. On the flip side, by the way, Jawan Jennings, same thing.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, yeah. Joanne Jennings is a guy that literally just gets first downs and touchdowns
That's just it,
for the
right?
Niners team. And so yeah, you got kind of an equivalent guy I would say with Lazard. Um,
Yeah.
even I would say even Randall Cobb actually. Randall Cobb's been kind of nice little clutch
I think
plays.
Randall Cobb is actually
Five
a better
tutties on the
comp
year.
yeah, I
Five
think
tutties
Randall
on the
Cobb's
year.
actually a better comp to Jawan Jennings than
Yeah, actually,
Alan Lazard.
very similar stats. 24 catches this year for Jawan Jennings, 5 tutties. 28 catches for Randall Cobb this year, 5 tutties. So
Yeah,
very, yeah,
they are very similar in that they don't get the ball as often as like your main guys, but when they get the ball, they're making plays,
yeah.
right? Yeah, absolutely. Jawan Jennings could be a guy who, that short passing game, let's just get first downs, let's move the chains kind of thing. They love getting Jawan Jennings the ball 5-6 yards across the line of scrimmage and let him get the rest of it for that first down, right? Jawan Jennings, like I think they threw like the one pick that was thrown, the overthrow was a Jawan Jennings slant. They love Jawan Jennings slant routes.
I mean, yeah. I mean, get your guys in open space as much as you
Yeah.
can. There was actually, that what was interesting in that one, early in that game against Dallas, there was a couple real tight window throws that they just got it right at the sticks. They just got right to the first down, little post routes and stuff like that. That Jimmy was able to fit into some tight windows. Didn't really have that typical. You think of this Niners passing game. I think no matter who's catching the ball, most of the time it's Debo. But you see this with Ayuk, and you'll see this with your Kittles. Even Juice can get out there a little bit as well when given the opportunities. Yards after catch, right?
Oh, yak yards is a big thing for them.
Jimmy, you got to hit him in stride. You go.
And you go.
And you go. It's an extended, I think just it that's how this Shanahan offense likes to run. Yeah, get it absolutely. Get that ball to Eli Mitchell, get it to Debo. And yeah, sometimes that's going to be nice little sweep, nice little in slant. And I love what we see earlier in that game too. A little nice RPO as well. Start to throw him off on that timing a little bit. You don't see too much of the RPO through Shanahan as far as really like a true fake. Give it that option,
is interesting,
take
right?
it back, and go like 15 yards down the field. Saw a little bit of that in that last game too, which is nice.
Yeah, and that's interesting because you figure with a run game like the Niners have, especially you run an RPO where instead of Eli Mitchell in the backfield, you have Debo in the backfield. Maybe Ayuk is running the pass option on that, right? What you get there is teams are gonna commit to Debo, and if they don't, you just let Debo burn them. If they do, you go to Ayuk, right? Like, I do think this might be a bit of a quiet game for Ayuk because the cold weather game I don't think really suits the style he plays of like, okay, Brandon, here's your route, go long.
Right.
Right?
They try to give him some sweeps every now and then, like Debo, but yeah. Absolutely.
And that might be how you work him into this game, right? Is you run some reverses, run some sweeps, get Ayuk the ball that way. But I don't know if this game really plays to Ayuk's strength.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see. Really, I think big factor player. I think this is the last thing we get hit on right here. I also have the Niners, of course. Nobody need to fucking worry about that. Eli Mitchell did not play in the first time the Packers saw this team. And this team didn't run for, like, they didn't even put 70 yards together across, like, 6 different players they had to run the ball. Going to be quite a different game for the Packers. Packers, second to last in yards given up per rush on the season. Even though teams, and so that's kind of a big factor. They haven't been run on so much because they get out ahead. But on the flip side, when teams have been able to run the ball on this Packers team, they give up big old chunks. And for a guy like Eli Mitchell that loves to just fall forward and get 10 yards or whatever a piece, it could be a long day for the Packers defense if they're not ready for that. I got to imagine you are. What other kind of game is this going to be?
Yeah.
But we'll see. We'll see.
The evolution of Eli Mitchell to me has been so interesting to watch, because for me, as I've gotten more and more into the college football game, right? Like when I watched it when I was younger, I obviously just like college football. But as I got more and more into it, and watching the stupid little games, watching Eli Mitchell at Louisiana Lafayette, he was a wildly different player than he is now. He wasn't a big play guy. He caught the ball almost as much as he ran it at times at Louisiana Lafayette, right? And when he got drafted to the Niners, I remember thinking, "Oh, that's perfect." Right? He'll be a nice swing pass option for them. Yeah. He can be the guy behind Raheem Mostert who he can run the ball occasionally, but he's also there to flex out in the passing game. And they were like, nah, Eli Mitchell's going to just be another running back for us, baby. He's going to do what all the other running backs do. He's going to touch the ball a bunch. He's going to run over dudes. We're going to make it. And it's been fun to watch for me because it wasn't necessarily the guy he was at Lafayette.
Yeah.
And seeing where he's at now, shout outs to the Raging Cajuns.
Nice.
It's a really interesting turnaround for a guy who's really only this is only his second season in the league, right? Like to make that.
This is his first year. He was a 6th round pick this past draft.
Oh,
right?
That's right too. This is his first year in the NFL.
6th round, baby.
This is a guy who
Eli Mitchell is the truth.
To make that turnaround so quick and just slot into the system like that, where it's like, okay, I'm not as much of a swing back option now. I am a true running back here. I love the fact that he just embraced it, right? And that's not me saying he was a bad running back at Louisiana. He never ran for 1,000 yards, but he was always 600, 700, 800 yards, right? Good running seasons, right? But he also caught the ball every year for like 500, 600 yards, right? So it's like, okay, he drafted more of a swing back option here, and he was like, nah, I'm just gonna be a running back.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's huge. It's really been, obviously people will point to, and they should, as far as the transformation and the flexibility that a guy like Debo has, and being a tailback, actually a lead tailback for this team. But Eli has been the one with Raheem going down, and Trey Sermon, for whatever reason, not being that guy.
Doghouse, man. I don't know what happened there.
We'll see.
He's actually,
who knows? Yeah. Like, it could just be, bad for year one. Maybe just dinged up, whatever. Just didn't quite fit into what was going on for the offense. Eli Mitchell.
They moved up to pick him this year too, right? Like, they traded draft picks to move up to get Trey Sermon, I think.
Yeah, both the Treys, basically. We did.
Yeah, it's interesting to see. Because when he's played fine. He's had moments where he's played well.
Yeah.
But, he can't get on the field. You never know what it is with that, though. You're right. It could be a myriad of things. He could be dealing with some nagging injuries. Maybe in practice he's just not clicking with the system yet, whatever it is. Or it could literally be Eli Mitchell has just been better, right? You don't want to take him off the field because you got Eli and Debo running the ball, and they've both just been running the ball well.
Two more things I'll bring up to this game, and I think we'll move on to the next week. One, look for my boy George Kittle to finally.
Would be a Kittle game.
He's been pretty quiet as far as getting some catches. I think he'll be a little bit more featured as far as the passing game's concerned. Obviously, you want him out there regardless, because he's going to block the shit out of anybody that's in front of him for the most part.
Oh, yeah.
But look for him to potentially get a little bit more. And then this will be the last thing I bring up. I got to bring this up, though, because I just had to take a look. Because I was kind of interested, because I knew he was going to float in there. You want to know who had a better QBR than our boy Jimmy Garoppolo this year? Kirk Cousins, unfortunately, and we all kind of knew that.
Wow,
Regular
really?
season, Kirk Cousins actually top 5 QB, fifth in the league, 101.
Ooh.
Actually tied for fourth. He tied with Russell. Oddly enough, Russell Wilson amazingly still had a 103.1 on the season.
Listen, Russell in the last few weeks of the season
Yeah,
began to look like the old Russell Wilson again.
Dak actually up there is number 3 as well.
That doesn't surprise me.
Raj, of course, is number 1. Jimmy Garoppolo, number 9. You know who he's better than? Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, two guys that we brought up in that conversation right there. He beat them both out of QBR on the season. Just saying.
QBR does like.
There's a lot of factors.
Yeah.
You could pick apart any set, and that's exactly what I'm doing right here because I have to make a point. Yards per attempt. Jimmy Garoppolo, second in the league on yards per attempt.
Whoa. We just talked about what their system is, though. Get it to Debo 5 yards down the
beautiful,
field, let
though.
him run another 20.
Doesn't fucking work, though. One of the least sacked quarterbacks for the amount of snaps that he took. He only took 29.
That doesn't surprise me. That Niners offensive line does not get enough credit.
And he, honestly, what he'll usually do and what usually has kept, I think he's been throwing the rock a little bit more in pressure situations. The knock that Garoppolo had in previous seasons, and I think why his interception total is up a little bit more, is that he would tuck the ball. He would get the pressure around him, he would tuck the ball, he'd take way more sacks. So it's kind of almost the flip side for him on this one. But he's not luckily giving up fumbles when he does get sacked. But let's see, there was one other. The fact that he played less games, that sort of thing, is going to skew some of those stats up. But yeah, I guess it was just kind of take a look at those two. Interestingly enough, as far as that QB rating, it's very particular as far as the real meaningful stats behind it, but kind of interesting. Oh, Mac Jones too. Mac Jones was like fucking below Carson Wentz this year. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, Mac Jones had a weird season, though, where he started off really poor and then ended the season kind of badly, and I think that probably hurt his stats a lot, whereas in that middle stretch where he was good, a lot of what he was doing was, make your passes and give the ball to Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson, right? But yeah, no, I can understand his QBR being a little bit lower given how bad he was for the first 5 or so weeks of the season and how rough the end of the season was for them as well.
Sure. Let's go right into it. We'll go into the Sunday games. We got Sunday starting at noon my time, so it's noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. We got the number 4 seeded LA Rams going in to Tampa Bay cross country there, face off against the number 2 Buccaneers. Buccaneers catching -2.5 points at home for this one. As far as it looks like going forward here, it looks like they will be without Ronald Jones.
Yes.
No Ronald Jones. JPP questionable for the Bucks. And I thought they might have one more. Typically the Bucks like to carry a lot of random questionable players. Sean Murphy Bunting, I suppose, as far as their DB. So a couple little question marks there as far as what they'll have going forward. Nothing crazy notable. The safety situation for the Rams is still kind of a little bit of a mess, but it has been.
And obviously missing Andrew Whitworth with that knee injury, but they knew that going into this game well before, so. They will have back Darrell Henderson, by the way. And
okay.
I know
that's interesting. Okay.
That's not a name that pops off the page for a lot of people, but Darrell Henderson's a pretty decent running back who could really give them another outlet.
Yeah, he'll be a nice spell at the very least to Michelle there. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah.
I really, obviously the Rams just came off a fucking stomping of Arizona in that first round there after, dropping that, incredibly close one, that crazy game against the Niners the week before. Bucks, like it's man, it's one of those things to where they've given enough away to make it have a little bit of a question mark over how they're going to play in this game. Uh, Bucks have looked really good at times, but there's other games where they just obviously, yeah, just flat, just not in rhythm, and obviously they're one or two offensive weapons down. I'm trying to think. I know obviously Evans was the only one to play last game. They don't. Yeah, it's not like they have Godwin, and yeah, so it's gonna really fall on Gronk. It's gonna fall on that running game. It's gonna fall on Evans again, basically, right? As far as their
Essentially, yeah, it's uh no Brashad Perryman, no Ronald Jones. We obviously, as you mentioned, knew about Chris Godwin, and the whole Antonio Brown situation happened, and they're short a bunch of guys. Can I be honest with you?
yeah.
I think the Rams might shit stomp them. I
I think it's a real possibility. Yeah,
I know betting against Tom Brady in the playoffs is a fool's errand, and I hate doing it a lot, but this Buccaneers team doesn't sell me
right.
at all. Right? They played in a very weak division this year and struggled with it at times. Like, I know that they won two of their last three games convincingly. Those games were against the Carolina Panthers, Sans quarterback. They didn't have anybody to play quarterback.
Yeah,
That's a rough team. They nearly pissed one away against the Jets, right? The 9-0 Saints game recently. That 30-17 win over the Falcons about a month or so ago was not that bad of a game up until the last minute or two when they scored another touchdown to make that scoreline look worse than it was.
yeah,
This is not a team that has looked particularly impressive and has lost to some bad teams. And I get that the Rams have also had a stretch where they didn't look impressive, but we talked about it during that stretch. They were integrating new players, they were trying to figure out what their identity is. They had that weird game against the Niners, but other than that, they had kind of found themselves by the end of the year, winning four of their last five, right? Four in a row before, or no, five in a row before losing that game to the Niners. And they're coming off of shit stomping the Cardinals. I like this Rams team a lot. And
yeah,
I know there's a lot of people who will point out playoff Matthew Stafford, and I get that. Been in Detroit his whole career. We don't really know what playoff Matthew Stafford is. Right? Because even though, yeah, they made the playoffs a couple times, it was the Detroit Lions. They never had the kind of talent this Rams team has.
yeah.
Right? I think this Rams team is just better than the Bucks right now. And I could see this game being ugly.
So I take it you have the
I have
Rams.
the Rams.
I have the
It's a
Rams too.
fool's it's a fool's errand, and I hate it because I feel like Tom Brady's gonna go for like 400 and make me look like an idiot. But
uh,
I like the Rams here.
I mean, this Rams defense hasn't, you know, really been. I would say, yeah. I mean, it's been surprising how bad against the pass they have been. So yeah, if there was a way they're going to lose this, it would
Yeah.
be with Brady throwing like 30-50 plus for 4 tutties or some shit like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like where they are at right now, as far as Tampa or as far as LA is concerned. I think they'll call a game in which Stafford won't have to. I mean, I don't think he'll have to win it for them as much as you might put it on Brady to win it for the Bucks.
That's fair.
And as much as Brady has won those games, it's not like this man hasn't lost some playoff games before. I just and for as kind of hit and miss as Tampa Bay has been as far as really like looking like a what would be essentially one of your AFC or sorry AFC NFC championship contenders or combatants, whatever you want to call it. I just don't see them better than the Rams right now myself. I would be very surprised if we didn't see a Probably if Bruce Arians is smart, he's going to be leaning a little bit on Fournette. At least early in this
Yes.
game. See if you can expose this Rams team a bit on the run game. They've been pretty goddamn good against the run, granted throughout the season. But if you can open that up a little bit and then kind of have Brady be able to sling it a little bit more, you could probably get that done with guys like Mike Evans and Gronk, and probably have enough open field. But I think if they get one dimensional by any means, I think it's actually a little bit more of a detriment to the Bucks than it will be for the Rams. I think, especially with how they utilize guys like Cup and like the short passing game and that sort of thing. I think there's enough like dynamic kind of short passing and quick hitting game for the Rams that you could you could kind of pick apart the Bucks team without having to necessarily run up the middle. I think if one thing we've taken a look at previous Bucks games, and we're like the one thing that you probably can't do against the Bucks is run that against Vita Vea. So get it outside the middle if you're able to get to the outsides, and when you got another running back coming back that will be able to spell Michelle, I think that's gonna be a nice little matchup to watch, I suppose, in that one. So I do really like the Rams in this game. I think I would pick them to win. But yeah, with the -2.5, I suppose you get a little bit of a cushion there with the points as well.
Yeah, the other thing that running the ball for the Bucks will do is it'll hopefully keep Aaron Donald off of Tom Brady, right? The Bucks offensive line isn't perfect by any stretch. They do have a tendency to crack at times against elite pass rushers. And if you can establish that run early, maybe you're able to keep Aaron Donald off of Tom Brady.
Right.
Uh, if you do get one dimensional, I worry about Tom Brady's health. Not necessarily because, Tom Brady has injury problems, but because Aaron Donald's going to kill him. Right? Like it it's a bad matchup for that Bucks offensive line, Aaron Donald. They don't do well against the guys who have good speed off the edge, and Aaron Donald is explosive off the edge. It could be a bit of a bad matchup for them if they can't find a way to contain Aaron Donald. And one way to do that could be to get Fournette involved in the game, right? You get Fournette running the ball. It forces Aaron Donald to respect the run game. You can work in play action, maybe freeze him up a little bit, right?
Yeah.
But I don't. The Bucks would pretty much have to do everything perfectly, I think, to win this game, given how much their roster is hurting right now. Whereas
Yeah.
the Rams look like they got a complement of players who are ready to go. This looks talent wise like it could be one of the best teams in the NFC, and I can't say I say the same thing for the Bucks.
Think so. Think so. Yeah, so both on the Rams for that one, and let's lead it in to the last game of the weekend. Obviously, a great one here. I think you talk about as far as that AFC side, because Tennessee, although being the one seed, the way their seasons kind of ended and how they're just getting together now, these kind of obviously have looked like your two classy AFC teams, at least toward the end of the regular season here. So this is a very exciting matchup. We got the number 3 Buffalo Bills going into number 2 Kansas City to face the Chiefs. Chiefs -2 here at home. This is a 3:30 Pacific kickoff, 6:30 Eastern. On the injury side of things, I'm seeing a couple questionables. Rashad Fenton, I know, would be a little bit of a hit there for the defensive backfield for the Chiefs. Darrell Williams there at running back as well as questionable. Buffalo looks actually pretty decently healthy going into this game. It will be obviously Buffalo just coming off of a pretty dominant win against the Patriots. Chiefs, likewise, dominant win against Pittsburgh. I really love this Buffalo team. I think they're really firing off at the right time right now. Defensively, offensively, they've had a. Uh, I mean, yeah, I think the biggest letdown game was how they performed against the Patriots. But you really take a look at that game, uh,
It was an
in the
extenuating
in the
circumstance.
tornado exactly. It's like the defense still played pretty goddamn good. They just couldn't get it enough offensively. I don't think they're really going to have any sort of problems like that going forward. Um, Josh Allen is literally running the ball like a running back right now, along with slinging the rock. I think this is a decently tall order for the Chiefs right now. So I really like the Bills in this game.
I don't think at this point in the playoffs there's any easy games, right?
Right.
You're at the point in the playoffs where every team's good, right? Nobody makes it this far without being a good team, right? We joked about the Eagles and Steelers last week being kind of cakewalks for the Bucks and Chiefs, and they were. Let's be honest, those were not playoff caliber sides. That's not the case anymore. Every team that's made it this far is at least good enough to be here. If I were to build a team from the ground up to beat the Chiefs, it would be the Titans, not the Bills. Um, I think this matchup plays into the Chiefs' offensive style. Uh, it's going to be tight the whole way down. I don't think this is going to go one way or the other. I think this could be one of the highest scoring games you'll see in the playoffs. But I do think I'm going to go with pedigree on this one. I think the Chiefs will find a way to pull this one out in what will be a shootout, an absolute barn burner. But I think the fact that it's going to be a shootout plays a little bit too well into Patrick Mahomes' hands. Um, I love Josh Allen as a quarterback, but until he can prove that he can get over that hump of beating the Chiefs in the playoffs,
Yeah.
I gotta kind of fade pedigree on this one.
Yeah, I mean, and anything could happen in a given game. I mean, I love the Bills defense.
Oh, I think this Bills
They're
team is great.
the and it's especially their passing offense. So that's the one area you expect. Like that's if somehow the Chiefs are able to start getting stuff going offensively in the passing game, that's going to be huge for them.
Yeah.
I honestly I think the Bills will kind of stand tall on that end. The fact
I
that
think
they've
this is the game where the loss of Tre'Davious White really hurts them because
yeah, I mean yeah,
they
definitely their
don't
best.
have that true number one shutdown corner out there anymore like they have when they have Tre'Davious White. Right? They got a lot of good corners out there. But when push comes to shove, you need that true number one guy to do what he can to shut down Tyreek Hill. Right? They don't have that guy that would have been Tre'Davious White. Right?
Yeah, I
Uh
mean I think they're kind of a combo team. I think they get to the quarterback.
yes.
This is a team that can to get there and get a good amount of sacks, and it has led to them getting interceptions. Granted, Travis White, the fucking stud out there. Your team's immensely better with him in your defensive backfield than not. I think this is going to be a little bit of a scheme up as well. I think if the Bills are able to dial it in, you're still going to be able to potentially this is a Chiefs team that looked pretty goddamn weak at the beginning of the season, and if you
Yes.
could kind
100%.
of if you could somehow get them back to that style of play, if you could expose them in some ways. Sometimes it's just as simple as some nice little stun moves, some nice little sweep it in, just kind of get them off balance. Don't let them be comfortable, that sort of thing. Get some pressure on Mahomes. That's the root of it. That's why the Chiefs team looked so bad early in the season. It's
Yeah.
because Patrick Mahomes was 75% of the time having to rush his throws, get out of the pocket, just survive back there. If the Bills can get to that a decent amount of time, you're not going to be able to. It's not going to be exactly like the early part of the season. But if you're able to get there a decent amount of time, shake up this offense a little bit. I like Buffalo to be able to. I think Buffalo's offense right now, you could take that son of a bitch anywhere and it'll work just as well as it did in another place. That sort of thing. I think it moves well on the road as well as it does play at home. Um, I think Josh Allen is, you know, he's a hell of a weapon to be able to have back there because yeah, they basically kind of are able to use him as a as a running back, for their team. So nice little hit of some dynamic areas of their offense. But I really like this Buffalo defense, so I think that will be a big matchup there. If it does become that shootout, I have to kind of agree with you. If Kansas City's really able to move the ball on Buffalo, I wonder if they have quite enough offense to be able to compete. But I think Buffalo's defense will step up and keep this a little bit more of like a 20-ish, you know,
Yeah, you
20,
can't you can't
28, 24.
yeah,
Yeah,
you can't stop the Kansas City offense, but if you can at least
yeah,
contain it,
yeah.
keep them to, like you said, mid to high 20s in points, you might have a chance.
Typically, you're looking at, unless you're talking like really some back and forth stuff with like 2 minute drills and that sort of thing. The offenses are moving decently. You know, how many possessions are you getting? I think this Buffalo team could keep them to like 4 scoring possessions,
Yeah.
field goal in 1 or 2 of those. They'll be right
Yeah.
there. I
Yeah,
think in
that's where
that
you have a
game,
chance.
there, I think they're favored. But yeah, if it's like touchdown, back and
I
forth,
think this game ends up
jeez,
being like 44-41 kind of thing. Like I think
woo,
this is
spicy.
gonna be rocket
I
busters of
think
points.
44. Okay, never mind. The over under is 54. I thought 44 by one team would automatically beat the over for this game, but no,
No,
it's
I
still 10 points. That's a pretty big over under actually. So
I think the Chiefs are going to be able to make this game fit their mold, which is, we're gonna run some high pop bomb plays, and the Bills are going to be able to match that as best they can. But I think Pedigree's going to win out in this one.
I don't think it's a bad call at all. And with the -2 spread, that's the closest game of the week. Probably going to be a goddamn good one to close it out on. So just to quickly review, we're only split on that last one game. Uh, First game of the weekend, I should say. Cincinnati going into Tennessee. We both have Tennessee at that. Tennessee getting -3.5 at home. Second game of the Saturday, San Francisco going into Green Bay. Green Bay getting -5.5 at home. We both have San Francisco on that one. The LA Rams going into Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay getting -2.5 at home. We got the Rams. And Buffalo going into Kansas City. Kansas City getting -2. I have Buffalo. Craig has KC. That should be pretty good. Good spread there. Obviously, yeah, divisional round, baby. This is where it's all coming down to it. This is going to be the decider for your conference championship contenders there. So that should be pretty fun. And I will say, I'll just so this is my extra topic. So this works out the perfect scenario. I've been talking with some of the Madden guys about this. This is how I foresee it happening. Niners going to Green Bay. Get the win against the Packers. All right. That's already, you got to just get the next game. This is going to be a fucking tough-ass game on the road in Green Bay. 5 degrees or whatever the fuck temperature it is. But if this works out the way we think it is, the Rams go into Tampa Bay and beat the Buccaneers. That lines up for an NFC championship between who? San Francisco 49ers going into LA to face the Rams. What the fuck happened last time that happened? That's a Niners home game. That's like 2/3 Niners crew right there. It's a sea of red. Then
Super Bowl's in LA.
you do that. You get that win, baby. Super Bowl is in LA. Another Niners home game. If it all lines up, I'm telling you right here, right now, I am going to take 2 weeks off of work. I am going to go to LA to the Super Bowl, and then I will quarantine for 2 weeks because there is no fucking way I'm not going to get COVID doing this shit. Book it right here. The Niners make the fucking Super Bowl. I'm getting my ass down to SoCal. And we are going to be boots on the ground in the stadium. Probably working the Kittle jersey. Might even pull out the old school Frank Gore jersey just for the good old times. Maybe.
Respect.
But
Here's the thing. I don't even disagree with that. I think if they get past
We
the
lined it
Packers,
up, baby. That's how we lined it up right here.
I
We
think if they
got
get
it.
past the Packers, you're absolutely right. They gotta love what the situation. They get 2 home games after that,
Yeah.
right?
It's all.
Like
It's got to
they
shake
got
out.
they gotta love the situation. Big ass getting past the Packers here, but if they do,
Yeah. I mean, and
the path
the
does seem
Rams.
to open up for them.
Yeah. The Rams also got to beat Tampa Bay at on the road there. We both think it'll go the Rams' way, but I mean, otherwise, yeah, you got a home game for Tom Brady again in the championship. We'll see how it all shakes out. But that's the fun little dream scenario we have. And if it actually shakes out, I will. Like, I know we're talking thousand. Like, I'm going to be spending 4 figures potentially on a fucking football game. I might have to do it though. I might have to fucking do it. We've been doing pretty good money wise. Our financials are looking pretty good. I might be able to drop it. This would be a bucket list to go to a Super Bowl, and not only a Super Bowl, but a one in which the Niners are playing in. I think we might have to try
Yeah,
to make it
I
happen.
think life is too short to miss out on opportunities
Yeah.
like that,
And
right? I think
I'll
I can't
quarantine.
argue with that.
I would quarantine right after because there's no fucking way I wouldn't be getting COVID if
Yeah,
I go to a fucking football stadium right now.
I can't argue that.
Right. Um,
I got a few topics if you're
yeah,
good with
yeah,
it.
let's hit on it. Let's see.
So this I was gonna bring up when we were talking about last week's games, but we didn't really touch on this game so much.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'll bring it up now. I sent you a thing on Twitter earlier this week. Did you see it?
Cliff,
Cliff Kingsbury's end of season records
it's been
as
bad.
a head coach.
Yeah.
So this is straight from Texas Tech to Arizona in the last 8 seasons. First season at Texas Tech, lost 5 of his last 6. Second season, 4 of his last 6, then 4 of his last 6, 6 of his last 8, 6 of his last 8, lost his last 5 in his last season at Texas Tech, goes to Arizona. Cardinals lose 7 of their last 9, 5 of their last 7, and 5 of their last 6. Cap, do the Cardinals need to consider firing Cliff Kingsbury?
I wouldn't be so hasty to firing, but I think he needs to get someone in his ear because I think there's something here right now. So we're actually taking a look at that graphic. It's great with him looking up at it as well. So I have the tweet pulled up right now.
It's a great tweet.
So this is what I think, like, because obviously it has been working, right? This team looks great early. This Cardinals team. I can't speak to his Texas Tech teams, but I imagine he did pretty goddamn well, right?
Same thing.
And you see this within an individual game plenty of times. I've seen it with the Niners, kind of almost why the Niners are a second half team. I kind of argued is that it was good adjustments, to what the other team was doing, and vice versa. With times when Niners look good in the first half, look bad in the second half, is that they just kind of got out coached a bit, and the adjustments were made. If Cliff is able to get somebody in his ear to get him to not just run the same shit, then it will be good. Like, this team will be fine. I think they have, obviously the weapons are there. The whole idea with Hopkins going down, and absolutely you can point to that this year and just be like, that's tough, right? But a lot of teams have lost big weapons in their offense and haven't had nearly as much of a collapse as this Cardinals team has. I wouldn't fire him by any means yet, but you need to get someone OC assistant wise that is able to work with him to get a plan going for the second half of these seasons. Because the writing's kind of on the wall. Like, you're getting figured out, dude. And it's kind of interesting that it's always the beginning of seasons, and it's like, do people forget how this Cardinal team runs? It's fucking Kyler and Hopkins. That's about it. And somehow they forget about the fact they have James Conner back there. He's doing good. He's not doing good. We're not even going to give the ball to James Conner anymore. That sort of thing. It's just very, very. It's unfortunate because I thought this Cardinals team was definitely. I mean, we said it multiple times. This looked like the class in the NFC, but We'll
For
see.
a good half of the season. They
Yeah,
were the best team in the NFC by far.
they have absolutely kind of become the Raiders almost of
Yeah.
the Raiders have been notorious for this. They've come out to many hot starts in the last uh, I would say 4 or 5 seasons or so, and just doesn't sustain. And
I'm with you. I don't think it's full on firing time yet, but boy, you got to sit down with them and at least have the conversation about like why is it always the end of the season?
yeah,
What are we doing wrong here? What do we need to fix? And you're right. It's probably get somebody in his ear to be like, "Hey, listen, let's try to keep throwing a little bit of wrinkles in this playbook, throw a couple of new things in there, get teams looking for something different." Right? Even if it's just to throw them off the scent, right? There's the famous Pat McAfee clip where he talks about the Troy Polamalu stopping his touchdown, right? And Troy Polamalu in an interview where he talked about it said, we were just throwing something different in on film, right? It was
right,
literally just so that other teams could see this and see something different,
right.
right?
I
Even if you got to do that,
yeah,
right? Even if it's literally just like you run a couple of plays that are wildly different from what you're used to seeing, so that other teams, when they film study, you go, okay, we at least need to look out for this,
right.
and it gives them something else to look out for, and it opens up the stuff that you're
The
used to more.
almost the worst thing you could ever be as far as an offense is concerned is predictable.
Yes.
Because there's 11 guys on the other side and a head, a coach on the other side that could potentially take advantage of that. Like if
Yeah.
you're really honing in on something, I point to in that scenario like I'm trying to think of specifically the game, but basically the idea that like if you don't have the ability to make that adjustment going in, whether it's halftime or just during a game, I think about, oh yeah, so like in the Dallas game last week, early on in the game, Niners are, you take a look and yeah, Niners did pretty well, but at times not the greatest as far as, especially on like first down, doing little sweep plays, little toss sweeps. He ran about like 3 or 4 top sweeps. I would say only about one of those actually worked for like some real good yardage. I think maybe one got 3 yards and then a couple others got fucking stuffed. Kyle Shanahan is basically setting up so later in the game, they do this weird, it's not a toss, they go away from the toss sweep. Instead, they do a toss counter. So they toss it back to the running back. Running back immediately makes a cut the other way and cuts back. Eli Mitchell has been doing this all year. They've run a little bit with Deebo Samuel, but you're training the other team basically. Exactly what you're talking about. You're talking about film from game to game. Within
Yeah.
a game, that happens too. You
Oh yeah.
literally you run those first 4 sweeps so that when you run that counter sweep, the fifth run, they are all biting on that outside,
Yeah.
and you hit them, you gash them for a 15 or a tutty or who knows what the fuck. And then later, you hit them with the sweep. Now, are they run the
Now
counter
they're
again?
worried about the counter. Yeah.
Now Deebo Samuel is running up on your ass, and he gets a
Yeah.
touchdown, and that looks like nail in the coffin. Little do we know, there's a lot more in that game to be played. But basically, yeah, like that, and that's the microcosm within the game. You start building up that stuff throughout a season, and you kind of like, you let it stew, you let everything simmer. I think with this Cardinals team, maybe it was a lot of short order cooking, right? It's like
That could
stuff that
be.
hit right there, and then you become predictable because you're
Yeah.
doing the same thing over and over again. You're just repeating that. We'll see. We'll see. I think Klitz is a good coach. I don't think they should go away from that, but I think they definitely need either he just needs to develop that, and that's absolutely possible. I think he's a good enough coach to grow. He's absolutely young enough to. It's not like he's for a lack of time as far as potentially being as far as the coach is concerned. But yeah, maybe get the right guy in his ear to be able to shift that as well. Especially when you're
Um.
talking about like their running game. Like
Yeah.
you got enough dynamic pieces. Obviously Murray there. You get a guy like Connor. He's kind of been in and out, but you get a lot of guys back there, and they would be really nice pieces to the complementary kind of passing and running quarterback that you have.
Um, yeah, I agree. Um, Mel Kiper put out his first mock draft.
That's right.
I disagree with it on a large scale. I I am kind of the college football guy of the two of us. At the
Yes.
moment anyways, right? I know Tap said he's watched some college football in the past, but I put out the college special. I watch a ton of college football. My predictions for the college special, by the way, I was 2 games above 500. Just throwing that out there. Just throwing that out there. Despite ignore the fact that I got the national championship completely wrong. I was 2 games above 500 as a whole, and we're
I
just gonna
mean,
go with that.
yeah.
Um, so I watched my fair share of college football. So when I saw Tap sent me this yesterday about Mel Kiper throwing out his first mock draft, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm kind of interested. I hate it. Uh, so a couple of the ones that stand out to me, I'm not going to go through the whole mock draft, obviously, and go, yeah, this one's right, this one's wrong. A couple of things that stand out to me. He has Aiden Hutchinson going number 1 to the Jaguars, and I get why. Aiden Hutchinson's probably the best prospect in this draft. But, Tap, last year you drafted uh, Trevor Lawrence, and he got murdered this season.
Right.
Everybody and their mother hit him. You have the first overall pick. What would you draft?
Well, if you had O line, good left side
Yeah,
tackle, maybe
yeah,
a guy named Evan
maybe
Neal.
maybe a 6'5" freak stud left tackle from Alabama named Evan Neal might
Yeah.
be a good pick there.
That's
Just throwing
actually
that one out
that's
there.
literally I and we spoke earlier, like as far as like, yeah, my knowledge is definitely not, that's immediately the first thing. I'm like, how the fuck are they not? I understand everybody loves edge, everybody loves the pass rush, but yeah, you got a Bama kid left tackle. Let's go,
Foot
put him in there.
5. The guy is a beast. Put him right on Trevor's blind side, cut his sacks in half next season.
Right.
Like, honest to God, it's that easy. This kid cannot miss. He's the best line prospect. This
Right.
he is a better line prospect than Penei Sewell, and
So
that's saying something. Because Penei Sewell last year, a lot of people thought he could have gone number 1 overall. Evan Neal is a better
right.
tackle prospect than Penei Sewell. This should be a no-brainer for the Jags.
So would so kind of going along with the pick that Kuiper put out there. What do you think of Hutchinson as far as
I think
the
Hutchinson's the best pure prospect in this draft. I don't think there's any
okay,
question about that. I
okay,
do think Aiden Hutchinson, like, so going into the season, this looked like Kayvon Thibodeau's draft for sure, but he had a really kind of rough season with Oregon. He wasn't awful, but he didn't look like number 1 pick overall good.
yeah,
So I think if you're looking at the best pure prospect of this draft, it's probably Aiden Hutchinson. I think the Lions are going to be more than happy to swap him up at number 2. But especially in football, I think you need to draft to need in the first round if that need is there, more so than draft to talent, right? Now, I'm not saying you take the 18th best guy on the board because you need that position, but you got 3 guys here in Hutchinson, Thibodeau, and Neal who could all realistically go number 1 and nobody would bat an eye at it. So at that point, I look at my team and go, an edge rusher would be nice, but I need to protect my franchise quarterback from getting killed the way he was this year. And I think you got to take Evan Neal in that case. And then I think you got Hutchinson going 2 and Kayvon Thibodeau goes to the Texans at 3. And all those teams will be ecstatic with that. But there is 3 guys in this draft who could legitimately go number 1 and nobody would bat an eye at it. At that moment, you've got to take the one that suits what your team needs the best. And they need Evan Neal really badly. Um, Jumping ahead a little bit, the middle section of this draft is actually pretty easy. Kyle Hamilton is the easiest number 4 ever, right? He is not as good as the top 3, but he is the best prospect outside of them. Like, that one's really easy. Line picks beyond that are fair. Where I then have another big problem is with my team, and that's the Falcons at 8. He has them taking Derek Stingley Jr. I like Derek Stingley Jr. Derek Stingley Jr. is going to be a good cornerback. But the Falcons need offensive talent badly. That pick right there needs to go to the offensive side. It either needs to be a Drake London or a Garrett Wilson or a uh Traylon Burks if he's still on the board. Or you go with a Kenny Pickett or a Malik Willis to sit behind uh Matt Ryan next year. Kind of start the grooming process of your next quarterback. I'm fine either way, but that pick needs to be offense. The Falcons' offense is not good enough to do anything right now. And you have a premium pick at number 8, it needs to go to that side of the ball.
Yeah.
The Falcons' defense is not fantastic, but it is good enough, I would say. Not only that, you drafted AJ Terrell 2 years ago, and he's looked good. He's been a little bit inconsistent at times, mainly due to injuries. But are you ready to give up on AJ Terrell 2 years in and ignore every other problem you have to pick Derek Stingley? I don't love that pick at all for the Falcons. I think the Falcons need to go offense there. I think the Broncos right after, by the way, also need to go offense, and he's got them taking Nakobe Dean, who is great. And if here's the thing, I don't think Nakobe Dean's still going to be on the board by 9, but if he is, he'll be hard to pass up. That being said, the Broncos need to go quarterback. They need to go quarterback. They cannot keep passing the buck down the line, hoping that next year we got the draft pick to get our guy. At 9, you could very realistically have your pick of the litter of the quarterbacks. Right. I personally prefer Kenny Pickett. I'd understand people who prefer Malik Willis. I could even get the argument for people who want to say that Matt Corral should go as your first quarterback off the board. But at number 9, there's a good chance Denver gets their pick of the litter because I think the Falcons go wide receiver. You need to take a quarterback. They got to stop passing the buck. Find whichever one you like the most in this draft. There's 3 quarterbacks who are first-round draft picks in this. None of them are elite, but they are all very good prospects who, given the right development, given the right situation, could become elite. You get to, if you're a young quarterback for the Broncos, you get to be on the team with the best defense that didn't make the playoffs this year. Your job is literally going to be good enough to not screw up as much as Teddy Bridgewater did. Right? This should be a no-brainer for the Broncos at 9. They have got to go quarterback. And I get the fact that a lot of people get the feeling that they might go veteran quarterback in free agency. I still think you go quarterback here. Because if you're getting a veteran free agency, you're band-aiding the situation, right? Especially because unless you get unless you get an Aaron Rodgers, at that case you might go somewhere else. Unless you get a truly elite quarterback, it's a year or 2 band-aid, right? It's not a long band-aid. So, I think the Broncos need to go quarterback there. Beyond that, once you get outside of the top 10, mock drafting's hard because it's honestly a lot of you're picking based on what teams might need, on what's going to be available, based on what you thought was there, right? Like, obviously, all this is well and good. If Kayvon Thibodeau falls down to number 8, the Falcons had better take Kayvon Thibodeau, right? That changes everything. You never know what's going to happen on draft day, so mock drafting is hard. So I'm not here to shit on Mel Kiper. I just thought there was a couple of egregious picks at the top of his board that I really didn't love. Right. And even those so here's the thing: if the Jaguars did take Aiden Hutchinson, I wouldn't be like, "What a stupid pick." Right? They decided to go with the best talent available rather than what they needed.
Yeah.
I can't argue that. It's not what I would do when the 3 top talents to me are all razor thin decisions between them. But I can't argue it. If you think Aiden Hutchinson's the best guy, you're going to take the best guy. So it isn't egregious, I would say, but I feel like in particular those Broncos and Falcons picks, both those teams need to go offense, and the Broncos in particular need to go quarterback. You just can't keep passing that buck anymore.
Yeah. I mean, we've kind of as we've spoken before about it. It's like how many quarterbacks, how deep is this draft in general for that sort of thing? Do you really want to pick up one of those guys? Yeah, and for the most part, with a lot of those veterans that are going out there, I don't know. It'd be interesting with like a Mariota or something like that if he gets in the mix. Like that's a guy I want to see potentially get another shot
Yeah,
as far as a
I
starter.
think the
So
Broncos are probably looking a step further. I think the Broncos are thinking they're in on Rodgers or Wilson.
the only thing I'll bring up, and I just found just hilarious, at number 28, Kuiper has Detroit Lions taking Sam Howell, quarterback from North Carolina. I don't really care how this guy plays, but with that fucking stash, he better be able to sling the rock. That's all I'm saying. If Detroit gets a guy with that stash that can sling the rock, let's fucking go. That's all I have to say.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I really like Sam Howell.
Right.
I don't think he's a
Apparently,
first round.
it sounds like from reading it, it's like he had kind of a rough deck dealt to him or hand dealt to him just based on his receivers. He had a lot of new
Yeah,
receivers,
you
that sort of
know,
thing. So
you're at North Carolina, right?
right,
So
of
you're not getting the pick of the litter as far as who you're playing with,
course.
right? You're definitely North Carolina's not recruiting the best football players, right? One of their receivers this year, I'm blanking on his name, and I'm not going to bother to look it up. Was they recruited him as a basketball player? Couldn't make the basketball team. They converted him into a wide receiver. Right. This is what I mean, right? This is the kind of things you're getting at North Carolina. You're not getting the pick of the litter as far as the best recruits are concerned. And no, the I don't think North Carolina had a single wide receiver who is projected to be draftable, right? So like he wasn't throwing to the best of the best guys. I I'm not sold on Sam Howell as a first rounder. And in particular, as the season got closer to the end, North Carolina really fell off, and Sam Howell's play really fell off. Now,
Yeah.
again, how much of that is on his receiving core? Hard to say. Uh, I think at 28, that'd be a bit of a stretch to take Sam Howell. But I also understand that the Detroit Lions really badly need a quarterback, and they're not going to take it at 2. Now,
Yeah.
could you package 28 with another pick?
See,
Move a
that's
little bit further up
yeah.
and maybe make a move at Matt Corral or Kenny Pickett or Malik Willis. Absolutely. That I think is a more likely option for the Lions.
I
And
I like that play. Honestly, trade back out of the first round right there. You could probably fleece a team for a couple good picks there
oh, absolutely.
to get up to the first round again.
But I think they're more likely to trade up rather than back.
Okay.
I think the Lions are probably going to look at their situation and really look at how poorly Goff played this year and go, let's just go for someone. I think like realistically, I think they have the draft because they got a ton of draft capital. They got the draft capital to easily trade up 10 spots, right? Get up to New Orleans spot at 18. And then at that point, you're probably going to have your pick of a couple of the quarterbacks remaining, right? You're probably only going to have one or two of the quarterbacks off the board at that point. So you'll probably have your Matt Corral pick, your Kenny Pickett, your Kenny Pickett. I've mentioned this before, by the way. Kenny Pickett's my favorite quarterback in this draft.
Yeah.
Kenny Pickett is the one who, if I was the Falcons, I'd want to draft Kenny Pickett. I think what he did at Pittsburgh was unbelievable. And he was at Pittsburgh, right? This isn't a guy who, again, not in a premium spot, not getting the premium talent around him. And he made that shit work. Kenny Pickett, 42 touchdowns, 7 interceptions this year, was unbelievable. I think that's your guy. But I could also see Pickett falling back a little bit. And if that's the case, I think the Lions could easily swoop up that draft to try to grab him. Uh, but yeah, I love Sam Howell. And here's the thing. I do think Sam Howell has a potential in the NFL. For sure. And he does have a fantastic mustache. Even this picture on the Mel Kiper mock draft doesn't do it justice. It's a it. I mean, we're talking Minshew levels of glory.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I mean, yeah, exactly. You can only see so much through the
yeah.
helmet there. I'm sure that thing's finally groomed and ready to go.
But Howell is so. There's two quarterbacks in this draft. who, if you talk to 30 different people, you're going to get 30 different evaluations of them. And it's Sam Howell and it's Malik Willis. I have seen things where people have talked to scouts where they have Malik Willis as a third round draft pick. Malik Willis on Mel Kiper's draft pick is going 11 and is the first quarterback off the board, right? Malik Willis is just this weird one. The other one who's like that is Sam Howell. There's a lot of people out there who think Sam Howell's the best quarterback in this draft. There's an equal number of people out there who think if you take Sam Howell in the first round, you've wasted a first round draft pick. So we mentioned it a little bit earlier in the season. This is a weird quarterback class. Nobody really stands head and shoulders above the rest, and none of them. There's no Trevor Lawrence here. There's no Joe Burrow here, right? At least not on paper. Now remember, Tom Brady was a seventh rounder, right? You never know coming out of college. Sometimes guys are gonna fool you. Um, but the Lions, I'm glad you brought that up because the Lions are definitely a team I could see trading up and aggressively trading up from 28 because they have the draft capital to do it, right? They already have the number 2 overall pick where they're getting either Thibodeau or Hutchinson or Neal. They probably won't take Neal. They're a team who definitely is going to take one of Hutchinson or Thibodeau, I'll say. If that's the case, you've already made that play. If you need to give up your second rounder to get your quarterback that you want, I think you're fine with that. I think you'll take 2 first rounders and give up your second rounder to get the 2 guys you really want over kind of having to settle for who's left.
Yeah, I mean, and all this, I think obviously this is kind of the first pass, and not all these even are even set out, right? There's actually the seating for this is everything. I think from 26 down still is actually yet to be decided based on where they actually finish. So we'll see how this actually shakes up, where that late Detroit pick actually ends up being. But yeah, I think when you talk about teams that do have those multiple picks, the Giants are there as well. They have multiple picks in those first 10,
Giants
right?
have so many picks.
So it's like definitely that will be interesting. How maybe we'll take a look even further down the line, and when we start getting closer to the draft, what are some realistic movement pieces that you could have? Things still need to shake out for right now, but yeah, just taking a look at that first draft there put out by Kuiper. Definitely, yeah, a couple interesting choices there, but remains to be seen what it actually ends up being by the end of it.
And I got one more thing.
Oh yeah, I have a feeling I know what this might
This
be. We got a
this weekend, tomorrow to be specific,
yeah,
we have a banger of a UFC card.
Definitely.
One thing I really want to talk about in this, I'll just quickly read over the main card. Main event is Ngannou versus Cyril Gane for the heavyweight title. Co-main event, by the way, this co-main event right here is the fight everybody should be looking out for. Brandon Moreno versus Davidson Figueiredo, coming off of 2 fights. This is their 3rd fight. Both of their first 2 fights were absolute fight of the year contenders. I think they won fight of the year with the second one. These 2 guys cannot put on a bad fight. So they're going to go in there. They're going to bang. Michel Pereira and Andre Fiallo is a very interesting one, to the point where they're not giving odds for this because Fiallo is just such an unknown to a lot of people here. If you actually I'm on the main UFC page. If you actually click on Andre Fiallo, they don't have his reach numbers put in.
Oh, interesting.
This is his first ever UFC fight. He is from a place in Portugal that doesn't usually produce great fighters, but I've heard a lot about him. I know a lot of people like him. It's a tough way to enter the UFC, but that could be a thing. Cody Stamann and Said Nurmagomedov is a fascinating one, and then the main card kicks off with Michelle Moraes versus Trevin Gills. It's a really good main card. Not
Yeah.
a lot of names per se, because they're relying on Ngannou and Cyril Gane
Yeah.
and Moreno and Davidson Figueiredo to
Those.
really
Yeah.
sell this card.
Right.
And that's fair. But sometimes with cards like that, what they'll do is they'll sneak on quiet, like little like quiet, like if you know fights, you know to look out for this one. And Cody Stamann and Said Nurmagomedov is that. Said Nurmagomedov at bantamweight, like yeah, a lot of people focus on him because he's related to Khabib, obviously. But he's also a freaking beast, and nobody wants to fight him right now because he's that fight that if you take it and lose, it's a big loss for you because you're losing to a guy outside of the rankings.
Right.
But if you take it and win, you don't actually gain as much as you would hope, right? Even though he's got the name Nurmagomedov, he's still that guy outside of the rankings who not a lot of people have seen fight before. So it's one of those things like, yeah, you beat this guy who's coasting off of his name. That's not the case, but that's what the casual perception will be. Cody Stamann stepping up to take it doesn't surprise me. Stamann's a gamer who will fight anybody. But that fight's going to be a bruiser. Look out for it. I do have Nurmagomedov winning that one. And then in the main event, Francis Ngannou comes into this fight as a dog.
Yeah.
Somebody
Crazy.
get some respect on Francis Ngannou's name right goddamn now. Listen, I get the fact that Cyril Gane is the interim champion and he's coming off of a win and, oh, he doesn't get hit much, so, he's a good counter fighter and he'll be perfect for Francis because he's just not going to get hit as much. He doesn't need to hit you much. He needs to hit you once and it's over.
Yeah.
Lights out. You're not waking up. The lack of respect being put on Francis Ngannou's name right now, not just by Vegas, but a lot of this is coming because of the difficult contract negotiations he's having with the UFC, where if you've heard anything about that, this is the last fight on his contract.
Right.
And Dana's had no traction with him. He cannot get him to sign because he doesn't value him that much. Let's be honest. He doesn't see a lot of value in Francis Ngannou, which is fascinating to me. How do you look at Francis Ngannou, built like a brick shithouse, immigrated from Cameroon to France, lived on the streets, went to a boxing gym, lived in the gym, paid his boxing gym dues by like sweeping the floors and shit like that, and had a boxing coach get in his ear and go, listen, you'd be a good boxer, but you'd absolutely murk dudes in MMA. So let's get you training MMA. Starts training MMA. Like, the story is perfect. He's the nicest guy you'll ever meet, legitimately, if you've ever seen him interviewed. The world's most humble dude, super nice. He keeps a collection on his fireplace of memorabilia from all the places in the world he's been. It's a very cool little thing that he does. He never forgot where he came from. And for some reason, that soft-spoken, that quiet demeanor and everything makes people think, oh, yeah, Cyril Gane's going to beat him. No. Put your money on Ngannou. Put your money on Ngannou by knockout.
Yeah.
Get paid. Like, just no respect being put on his name right now, and I'm here to put it back.
Yeah. I mean, it's obviously, just the fact that you have your your official title holder versus your interim, that's obviously going to draw some attention. You got your two champions to finally kind of reunify it, make it just a single champion for your division there. Obviously, heavyweights. This is like as much as you love to see, the Figueiredo and the Morenos and that sort of thing. This is the fun stuff to watch. Seeing the big ass
Heavyweights where you make your money.
Right? It's an interesting matchup with Gane here. I mean, you talk about the classic. This is your Ollie Foremans, right? You as far as and it's interesting in MMA because obviously you're talking about the clinching tools and that sort of thing that you'd be able to otherwise use in like a boxing match. You don't have necessarily available to you to like save your ass in an MMA match.
Yeah.
So Ngannou obviously one punch can do it. what you have seen though in other potential, especially with the big man fights, is if you get gone and he can start getting the leg kicks in, that sort of thing. If you can slow him down, this is all very much I think this fight's made within the first round, right?
Yeah,
If
100%.
it's
If it gets
either
out of
it's
the
either
first round,
it's either
Ciryl Gane's
finished it's either
yeah,
finished by Ngannou in the first round, or if Gane's able to just kind of pick him apart, stay outside, not take too much damage, get through a first round, and
he's
Ngannou is
probably
taking
feeling
enough
pretty good.
damage to his legs, as far as just not being able to come in so much, then he probably takes them into the deeper waters, second, third round,
Yeah, Gane's
TKO
probably
or
feeling
something
pretty
like
good.
that finish, right? So it really plays within that.
Yeah.
It's very much like a very early, first 5 minutes of this fight are going to dictate a lot as far as how it's actually going to end. That being said, I mean, I Ngannou, like you gotta love the fact that he can't end it with this one punch. I wonder if there is like if he has a little trick up his sleeve. I think that everybody's expecting it to be like gonna go in, get that. I wonder, if it's like just a little subtle defensive something. It doesn't have to be anything crazy like he completely changes up his style or anything like that. But I think it's one of those things. Has he been working on his checks? Is he gonna check an early leg kick from Gone? It's just gonna be like, oh shit, I can't I
Yeah.
don't want to kick him anymore because he checked the shit out of that first one. I didn't do any damage to him. It's just like little things like that. I think will be important because yeah, I don't think obviously Gon's gonna be able to stand and bang here, right?
The other thing about this fight that has come out through the Undisputed series that the UFC does is these two used to be training partners.
Hmm.
And Ngannou,
Okay.
uh, in training, has knocked out Ciryl Gane before in sparring. And that's been a big thing that's come out. Now, Ngannou's very much tried to play away from that, saying, like, I don't take pride in doing that. We're supposed to be protecting each other in sparring. And yeah,
Yeah.
I accidentally knocked him out, but, like, I don't feel good about it. It's not the kind of thing I want to flaunt and pride myself on, which I respect, by the way, very much so. It'd be easy to sell the fight on, like, yeah, I've knocked this bitch out before. I've knocked his ass out in training all the time. It was like a one-time thing, from what I understand.
Think
where,
if somehow Nick Diaz or Nate Diaz was fighting
yeah,
this, and you're like, knock that motherfucker out. I wasn't even trying.
yeah. He mentioned like it was one time in training. He threw a head kick. It caught flusher
Right.
than he wanted it to and put him out. And to be fair, whenever I hear that, I take that and I throw it away. Usually, it doesn't mean
It's
anything
yeah.
because you're going 50%, right? And usually, if you knock a guy out in sparring when you're going 50%, what happened is you threw something, you
That was
didn't
probably beyond
check.
50%.
Yeah, you didn't check it soon enough, and the other guy was, kind of slowly going through the motions, kind of thing, trying to get himself into shape, and you just kicked his fucking head off when he was expecting you to, throw it 50. So it's easy to take some of that stuff and throw it off to the side. That being said, the fact that Ciryl Gane seems so frustrated by it interests me, right? Because it's one of those things where, like, Ngannou quickly tried to downplay it, but it frustrated Ciryl Gane. Like, it frustrated, like, this guy knocked me out in training, he doesn't have any control, blah. It pissed him off. And that's not a good thing for Ciryl Gane. Because here's the thing. If Ngannou pissed you off throwing 50, what's going to happen if he hits you with that Volkswagen hand? Right?
Right.
Are you going to lose your cool? Right? Are you going to be able to maintain the style of fight that's going to win you this fight?
Yeah. I mean, I imagine it's kind of like it's a place and time sort of thing.
Of course.
I think you're going into a pro fight. Like a lot of those things, I mean, and granted, it's easier said than done to put on the blinders and be also mentally set. But yeah, you're a professional. You've been doing this long enough. I think.
Yeah.
I think this stuff might bother you, but yeah, it's kind of gets zoned in when it comes to it. The thing with it on Ngannou is you can only potentially take one punch, and yeah,
You don't get
you don't get a way to feel about it. You're fucking down,
Yeah.
baby. Like good luck. Wake up. Like
There's no second chances with
for
Francis
sight. So
Ngannou,
we'll see.
right? Like
That's gonna be fun. Yeah, it's gonna be
there
a fun fight.
was UFC posted a thing of like Ngannou in slow motion, and he's just winging the wildest punches you ever seen. Where it looks like if they hit somebody, they're gonna do nothing because there's no form to him. And he lands this left hand, and it looks so unassuming, even in slow motion. Fucking lights
Yeah.
out. Good night. Like that's the thing about Ngannou. Even in situations where it looks like he's got no power on his punches, trust me, there's something behind those.
Yeah.
I don't get the odd swing to Gone here. I understand that he's undefeated and I understand that he's a good defensive fighter. When you're facing a guy with one punch like that who can absolutely obliterate you, especially when you're a guy who's 10-0, never really been in trouble like that before,
Right.
I wonder about Gone if Ngannou's able to take him deep.
Right. And yeah. And I will say actually one more thing as far as the as 270 is concerned, and I understand why, because it's your heavyweights, it's the marquee, that sort of thing. You put them at the front. Honestly, would have liked to see Moreno, Figueiredo at as the main. Reason being, because you figure this is going to be like a 2-round fight at the max, right? Well,
Ngannou's here's
right,
the thing.
this thing's gonna be ended. Like,
If it's anything more than that, it's not going to be a fun fight to watch.
I-
Because it's going to be Gone
yeah.
killing the momentum of this fight and just kind of circling, right?
yeah, and I mean, his style, you're just gonna get gassed. You're
Yeah,
just like, how much
and
can he really last?
we saw it in the Cyril Gone fight where he won the interim title, where he landed his punches early, kind of gassed the guy out, and then just kind of circled a little bit and let the time run out.
Yeah,
Right?
Well,
That's going to be what happens if this goes past 2 rounds.
well, I feel like this Moreno fight is gonna be a fucking war, and that's a fun way to end
Yeah.
the evening, right? It's not a letdown to have like a knockout, that sort of thing, but I think as far as like the transition of what I would like to see as far as the card build up, I would like to see the knockout then go into the war, and then you end it with the and this is part 3. Like, this is a really marquee match. If it wasn't for the heavyweights on this card, this is absolutely your headliner, right?
Yeah.
No doubt. So it's kind of a shame that it's been put to second fiddle, but I think, as you brought up, I think that's honestly really the fight of the night. What a war that's gonna fucking be.
Those
dude.
2 guys cannot have a bad fight. Their
No,
first fight ended,
right? Like,
their first fight was
it's gonna be hard to live up to it, but yeah, like, come on.
very close to fight of the year.
Yeah.
Obviously, the draw ending because Figueiredo got deducted a couple points for groin strikes.
I forgot
Second
about that.
fight
I forgot about that.
for 2.5 rounds, they absolutely beat the fuck out of each other. And then Moreno sunk in that rear naked choke,
Yeah.
got him there. Right, we're going to the third fight here. They've now fought each other for 7.5 rounds, and it's been entertainment every second of it. I don't know what else you can expect, but Moreno and Figueiredo to come face to face at the start of this thing and just stand and bang with each other because that's all they do. Yeah. It's gonna be crazy.
Yeah, looking forward to it. That's gonna be a fun Saturday night to kind of after the games. Yeah, that's gonna be a great weekend of sports. Looking forward to it. Anything else you want to hit on?
I got.
All right, man. Well, I think we'll wrap it up there. Another great stream. Got to get ready. Get the snacks ready. Get everything ready for Saturday. We'll be here. We'll be on this channel watching the games, kind of with a little co-cast, playing some video games or whatever, just kind of chillaxing, watching both the games tomorrow here on twitch.tv/TapatioJ. You can check us out every Friday, just about every Friday. We try to make it around 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern on the Sports Clichés podcast. You catch it here every Friday live. You can also catch us on our YouTube. Look up Sports Clichés over there as well. We have a link I could also post that in the chat for you all on that. But yeah, this has been great. Awesome. Another episode here. This has been episode number 13 of the Sports Clichés podcast. Going into the divisional round. I'm Jay. As Craig. Thank you all for stopping by. Hope you have a great rest of your evening, and we'll see you next week going into the championship games. All right, y'all.